Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special bucket list celebrity edition of Monster Party.
Monster Party!
Monster Party!
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! I hear it's starting. It's
Wow.
starting.
It really
The
is
heart
starting
rate.
right now.
Yes, yeah.
And
This
let's
is
get
gonna be-
right.
yes,
let's get right to our show. It is a pretty amazing one.
This is.
I think we can all agree.
I'm ecstatic. I'm thrilled.
But before we do that,
Yes. Who are you, sir?
I am Matt Weinhold.
I am SHAWN Sheridan.
I'm Larry Strothe.
And I'm James Gonis.
And for our topic tonight,
What a topic!
it's a very special topic.
Yes, it is.
And the only way that I can really introduce it is to say it is an evening with Jeffrey Combs.
Jeffrey Combs!
Now, we didn't actually get Jeffrey Combs, but
What
we got one of the greatest Jeffrey Combs impersonators.
Ever.
No.
Robert Flange
No.
is here.
See, why you do
The
that?
one-man show.
Will you tell us who our guest is?
Look, Jeffrey Combs is here.
That's right. Just call me Robert.
Jeffrey, we are.
so much for being
yes.
here.
I'm I
Amazing.
think I'm thrilled.
You know, you can change that opinion at
time
any
will
time.
tell.
It's fine.
It turns on a dime.
Yeah. I totally understand. That's how I feel about this show.
What I really like is the visual aid. I am looking at a huge banner.
Yes.
In case I forget where
Yes.
I'm at.
Yeah.
Monster Party.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, let me just explain. There is a reason why that is there.
Yeah.
Okay.
What
just
is
He
it?
hates my kitchen.
Well, it's a nice kitchen. It's a nice kitchen. It's just that you know
doesn't wanna
when-
look at it.
No,
When we take
no.
pictures later.
I don't want to look at
Yeah,
his
yeah, that's
sink
pretty much
with
it,
the
yeah.
dishes. I mean, is that wrong?
When I take
That's not
pictures
so
of
wrong.
when I take pictures of Larry from this angle, the kitchen is in the background, and that was an issue
that's
for
what it's
him.
all about, really.
So he made a banner just to cover up the kitchen.
So are you saying?
and I'm the egomaniac.
Not only a banner, but like, a whole device to hold the banner.
Yeah.
Whole-
okay,
yeah, whole
this
deal.
is great to talk about the kitchen and the sign, but we have an
Look,
amazing.
if Jeffrey Combs wants to talk about my kitchen,
and let him go.
Okay.
So look, there's
moving
a lot
on from the kitchen.
Yes,
moving on.
because we're so thrilled to have him here. There's so much to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you've
and this was nice. We
There
kinda,
is?
Yeah,
Okay.
we got a
All
lot to
right.
talk about.
All
Yes.
right.
I'd like to first of all just know,
Yeah.
because this is what we like. We like the science fiction, the horror, animation, all that. How about you? Like, how much do you like this kind of stuff?
This is what I would say.
Be honest.
Yeah.
I am being honest. When I was a mere child, and in those days there was TV, black and white, and then, oh my God, color. But there were also the matinees at the movies.
Sure. Right. Sure.
And there was nothing that I loved more than the sci-fi
Oh, there you go.
and
there he is.
House of Wax and
Oh yeah, 3D.
Seven Tales of Dr. Five, Seven Tales of Terror, and
Yeah.
a head that wouldn't die.
I hate it when that happens.
Been there. Make sure they don't die, actually. So,
God bless you.
So, yes, I was sort of steeped in it. I read Eerie magazine.
Oh, yeah.
You read Eerie magazine?
I did.
Creepy and Eerie and
Creepy and Eerie and
Vampirella.
Vampirella.
Yeah.
The Warren magazine.
No, I know what it is.
I know you
That's
know.
great, though, yeah.
So what about Famous Monsters? Did you look at that at all?
Not so much. I just remember Eerie,
Eerie.
really
Interesting.
drawing me in.
Huh, okay.
And I suppose I looked at Famous Monsters too, but so yeah.
You paged through it, sure.
So I was totally into sci-fi and horror when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like, this is what happens is people think because, I tripped into this movie called Re-ANIMATOR,
Not familiar.
they then like extrapolate that from my birth, I must have been just angling
Right.
For that
to
role.
just do Lovecraft, and that's all.
Right. Right. You,
Right.
I like, gee, I want to be an actor so I can do Lovecraft
yeah.
movies, and it's like it couldn't be farther really from the truth. I mean, when I auditioned for Re-ANIMATOR and this young Stuart Gordon said, this is a Lovecraft story, I had no idea.
Really?
Oh, you had no idea.
Wow.
I bullshit. Oh yes, great.
No, so you're like you're an actor, you're a struggling actor. Go, yeah, I know all about it. 'Cause I want to be.
I love
If he
craft.
had said Shakespeare, Moliere,
Sure, sure.
the classics, or Poe, even.
Yeah.
I would have went yes, but
Yeah.
Lovecraft, not quite my wheelhouse.
He's a little beyond. He's a little off the beaten path, a little bit. Like when it comes to classics.
Also, he has up to that point, he had not been really showcased that much in cinema.
Certainly
Right.
not in
No.
film.
Not really.
No.
And I would say this, though, whether I knew it or not, I did know who Lovecraft was. Because Eerie Magazine.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
A lot of these movies that I would see at
Yeah.
the matinees or I would watch on TV. They're ripping Lovecraft off right
Sure.
and left
Yeah, yeah,
without
yeah.
me knowing it. I
Right,
don't know
right.
the frame of reference. Okay.
Yeah.
So when I say I didn't know, I wasn't aware that I knew.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, but just to clarify though, I mean, when you were growing up, you watched some sci-fi films, but there was something inside you that said, "I want to be an actor," right? As a kid,
Did one necessarily go to the other, or was it just in general
Yeah.
you wanted to be an actor?
I didn't really know. You know, my very first sort of, I guess, artistic kind of endeavor was drawing.
Oh yeah, really?
I was constantly drawing.
You still do it?
No, not so much anymore. But I was fascinated with faces. Mm-hmm. And most of my drawings were character faces, and I
Yeah.
just didn't know when to stop.
Okay.
And eventually I would, but that was sort of my outlet. I made comic strips. That was my first sort of way of expressing myself.
Was it caricature stuff like Charlie Brown, or was it more like it was realistic,
It was more
like eerie?
like realistic, a lot of wrinkles, cigarettes hanging out of their mouth.
Not caricature like a guy riding a surfboard.
No. Mostly faces of people
Okay.
that I made up,
Right,
not
right.
actual people. You know, not like portraitures. And then when I was a teenager, drums.
Really?
Drums.
really? Okay.
Got into
Were you in a
music.
band?
No, well, maybe for like a nanosecond.
Oh, yeah?
You know, in somebody's garage, but
Yeah.
because it never really got that far. I just drums. I eventually got a drum set, not a very good one, but it was a drum set, and I just pounded the shit out of it. It's a great tool for a teenager.
Yes. Yes.
You're getting out some
Yeah.
serious hormonal issues there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you were an angry teen. So
Well,
Yeah.
aren't most teenagers?
And then when I was sort of in high school, I took a drama class for an EZA. Junior in
Wow.
high school, and I did not audition for the first show of the season of the two shows that the school did. I didn't do it, and the drama teacher had me stay after class and said, "You know, we cast the show, but somebody dropped out. I want you to do it." And I said, "There is no way that's happening." And he sort of cajoled me for an hour,
Wow,
and I finally went, "Okay, fine." And I was so pissed that I had said yes, but such things turn on these. It
That
just
right.
shows you this resistance
Yeah.
to what has turned into be what I do.
Yeah, your destiny.
What was the part in the play? I was curious.
Yeah, it was. Interestingly enough, it was a play called "The Dark of the Moon."
Nice.
That's high school?
An old sort of folk tale hillbilly witch story.
What
Oh my
school
God,
did
I
you
have
go
that.
to?
No, listen,
Bye Bye Birdie or
back in the 50s and 60s, this was sort of like, this was sort of a
Great.
hit on Broadway or
wow,
something.
okay.
Wow.
The Dark of the Moon. And I played Bert Dimwitty.
Bert Dimwitty, Reanimator.
I remember this. I remember that. I had 13 lines.
Wow.
But on my first line, I got a laugh. And I went, "Oh, okay. This is,
right.
it was almost like dopamine or something. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I just was doing all the plays, and then I went to college. Lucky to be near an incredible theater plant at a small college, and it just made all the difference.
Was
in
that
my life.
was that the one in Washington or
No,
was
it was in Santa Maria, California.
Santa
actually.
Maria?
Yes, there
I
was
did stand up there once.
visionary. There
Yeah.
was a visionary man who ran the drama department at Allen Hancock College, and he created on the West Coast a historic theater program there. We did 6 plays in rep in the summer.
Really?
Wow.
It was a mecca for actors, not only from around the country, but California especially. A lot of people that are still working. I spent a summer doing plays with Robin Williams was there.
Really?
Wow.
This is before he went
yeah.
to New York, before he
right.
went to Juilliard.
Yeah.
He was just a kid from Marin.
Really?
Wow.
I had no idea.
He didn't get cast very well. he had okay parts, but he wasn't
yeah.
like, oh my God, Robin Williams.
You were
know?
saying, that guy will never amount.
He was
to
still
anything.
probably
Well,
finding his
you know
thing.
what?
Yeah.
He was brilliant after the show at the party.
Interesting.
yeah.
I know that one.
No, he had some friends
Yeah.
that came with him from Marin, and they go, do the guru thing. And he would sit on a table, cross-legged, and people would throw questions at him. And I just stood back and went, that is a phenomenal ability
Right,
that
right.
nobody has. Wow.
Interesting.
And then...
wow.
Improv.
Had no idea.
And many years later, I'm kicking around L.A. and I'm at the Paramount commissary, and he's doing Mork and Mindy at that time. And he came over and said, Jeff, how are you, man? Really? Like,
Wow, that's awesome.
That is
Yeah.
so cool.
isn't that cool? He's
Yeah.
a sweet guy. He
Yeah.
was a
I
sweet man.
worked with him a number of times in stand-up,
Yeah.
and he
Did
was
you?
the greatest guy ever. The sweetest nicest
dude.
person.
Real genuine. Absolutely. We had a lovely summer. There was about 8 of us that just kind of guys that just hung together and laughed and made jokes and tried to impress each other. And,
Kind of like what we do.
kind of like what you do.
Yeah, but probably funnier or something.
It doesn't-
But you.
So anyway,
but you
how do
were-
we get on that?
No. But you did the Santa Maria stuff. But then
So I did-
you went to University of Washington.
Well, here's
right?
the thing. Santa Maria was like show.
Okay, you got a lot of practice, yeah.
All kinds of different styles, genres,
Right,
classics to modern to
Right.
anything in between. It was just an amazing washing of all these styles.
All the stuff to soak in, right?
But I knew that I had to have training, and so
Right.
I got accepted to the training program at the University of Washington.
Right.
It's the same league as Juilliard.
Yeah,
and Carnegie.
yeah.
yeah.
It's prestigious.
And it's basically like, if you're a race car driver and you got really good innate talent driving, at some point you got to break apart the car and figure out how it runs so you understand it better. And I think that's what training is. You got this basic instinct or maybe an organic ability, but, training is about breaking it apart, and it's like, let's deal with the voice, let's deal
Yeah.
with the movement, let's deal with how you approach a role. Let's, so it's sort of this dismantling of what you do naturally, and then you put it all back together and go on. So yeah, I went to training for 3 years
Yeah.
at the UW,
Wow.
and then I got a gig at the Old Globe in San Diego doing Shakespeare. And I did a couple of seasons of that, and an agent saw me
I see.
Oh, okay.
and said, "What are you doing after this?" I remember this. It was on my birthday
Really?
Wow.
after a show. "What are you doing after this?" "I don't know." And she said, "Well, I have an office in L.A. and I have an office in New York. So, what do you want to do?" And I know I chose L.A.
Yeah.
and came to L.A. and died. Well, it's a complete. I had a nice sort of momentum going in theater and going from gig to gig, and
Yeah.
then you jump to this new world, and it's
Yeah, right.
start over time.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then so that was sort of humbling.
Yeah.
And I was in LA, and I'm grinding it out, and I'm going to auditions, and thank you very much. And there's a real adjustment to do this stuff.
Sure.
It's a
Did you have
different-
friends here already?
I did.
Yeah?
I did. I had some friends. I was really lucky. I moved in with a couple of guys that I really got along with, and so we were okay. I had a good, nice, steady, sane base camp.
That really makes
Right.
the difference.
It really
Right.
does.
Yeah.
And, I just hung on, and I would do theater to get through and just hung on. And my agents would say, "Well, don't leave." And I go, "No, you don't understand, man. I got to work. I got to, for inside and out, I got to go." And so I finally, I'm doing a play in LA, and casting director came. I don't remember if I invited him or not. I don't think so. And he said, I'm casting something right now. You might be right for it.
Yeah.
And that was Re-Animator.
Wow.
Well, didn't you do like you had the little part in the Man with Two Brains or something?
Yeah,
that's like one day. It's
one
one
day.
bit part.
You want to know that story?
No, I'm just you dabbled.
I was working at the Mark Tape Forum, and my agent called and said,
Hey, got your part with Steve Martin.
what are you doing this afternoon? Go over to Warner Brothers and meet with this casting director. So I go over there and I meet with her. Marion Doherty or something maybe, and she goes, I want you to go to this address right now, and you're going to read for the director. And I go there, and it's like down on below Rossmore, like a mansion down below Vine,
Yeah, sure.
And it's just they're renting a house and shooting in it, and they put me in this RV, and in walks Carl Reiner.
What? Wow.
Carl Reiner. He's directing Man with Two Brains.
That's great.
And he goes, Combs, are you any relation to Earl Combs?
Just go, yes.
He played for the Yankees. and he did, actually. He's in the Hall of Fame, and he batted with, it was Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Earl Combs.
Wow.
Okay? And I said, no. And he said, that's okay, kid, you got a job.
It was like that, just like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
And you got this little shaving scene,
That's just that.
He's got to be he had to have been a pretty sweet guy.
He was. The other thing I remember about that show is the very first time, I mean, I hadn't done much film, but this was really in its infancy. This idea that the director could be in another room looking at a monitor.
Right.
This was really high-tech, new,
This is 80s,
and it was a
yeah.
shitty, snowy black and white
right.
feed,
Right.
but it
Right.
was something.
Yeah.
So he didn't have to be right next to the camera,
Right.
I remember hearing action from another room and going, what?
Right.
That's always
What's
weird.
going on? I don't understand.
Like anytime I did a commercial shoot, and you'd have everybody in like a tent about 100 yards away, all you do a take, and then they're all like converging with each other.
The huddle.
Yeah, right. Like,
All right.
How do we fix this? It's terrible.
Well, they say, let's shoot, and then everybody leaves.
Yeah. Whoa, wait.
Right.
We're going to lunch?
Anyway.
Jeff, one of the first things before, probably maybe the first genre thing you did though was a movie called Frightmare.
Very first,
Right? Early
not the very
80s?
first thing that I did. The first thing I did was, whose life is it anyway?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Richard
okay.
Dreyfuss, right?
With Richard Dreyfuss.
Right.
And I had a small scene with the great John Cassavetes. No, actually, the first thing I did was Honky Tonk Freeway.
Oh,
Okay.
And that was very informative because, John Schlesinger, who did Midnight Cowboy, this movie didn't do very well, by the way, guys.
Although
Honky Tonk
I do like it a lot, actually.
Honky Tonk Freeway?
Yeah, it's a guilty pleasure.
Does it have a good soundtrack, James?
It does. Yeah.
He loves soundtrack.
But it was the real lesson was that I played a bank teller, and they brought into me just thousands of fucking dollars.
Real money.
Real money?
Yeah, just right in front of me. It's like, oh my God, this could be rent. This could be.
Thanks for the per diem.
But I mean, but they also, it was shot near Northridge. And it was in the summer, but they brought in trees with no leaves to make it look like it was wintertime in the South.
Right.
They
Hollywood.
went to all of this extreme extent. And then, you see the movie and nothing.
Yeah.
And the money, it was like, well, this is Hollywood, isn't it? They show you the money and then you wank it all away.
Right.
So you didn't go, well, I'll
Just
just take
for
this
show.
prop. I'll take this prop money home, No, it's going to be thrown away.
Yeah, well, I guess this is mine, right? No.
So you dabbled. You had a little gig here, a little
Big
there.
gig there, nothing that really popped, and then I didn't think Re-Animator would pop either.
Right.
But how did you? So how
So
did the audition?
Frightmare, you want to?
Well, yeah, because Freddie Main from Fearless Vampire Killers, because
Yes.
he plays like this kind of.
Ferdy's a sweet dude. He was
Yeah.
a sweet guy, and that was a bit of a struggle. That movie. I remember at one point the producers gathered all the actors together and said, "We want you to agree to sign away all of your overtime."
No.
Jeez. What? It seemed like that movie was maybe being.
And it was like,
Rescripted.
SAG. SAG goes, you can't do that.
Right.
And they shut up, but they tried.
That's nice.
Where the
Right,
lunch,
right.
where
We
the
were
lunch,
all like, this is so shitty.
where the lunch is pretty like low, like
Beyond
like a bag of chips. or
not
something.
memorable at all.
Really?
No,
We were
it was
told of
bad.
one. We had one guest here who told us about. It was the actress from the class of 1984, and she was saying that like for the
Lisa Langlois.
Lisa Langlois, and for meals, it was just a big tub of peanut butter, a tub of jelly, and some white bread.
I've been there.
Wow,
I've seen those sometimes. Try shooting in like Romania or something.
Now,
God.
which one did you do in Romania?
Working Fear.
Oh yes. Okay.
And
C. Courtney Joyner?
Well,
Is that
yes,
the-
C. Courtney Joyner
friend of the show.
directed that, and he's a lovely guy and a good friend of mine. But the catering was like catering wasn't.
How do you want your dog cooked?
No, one day we said, "Can we have some vegetables?"
Oh, right. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, yeah.
And they tomorrow, and then there was corn on the cob.
Hey,
Closer.
Until we bit into it and we realized that it was livestock grade corn on the cob. Like inedible.
yeah.
Like hard, like after 4 hours of boiling. Still like not able.
Wow. The lurking
Be eaten by
corn.
humans. And it was like, forget it. We're not going to ask anymore for anything.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was hard.
Well, okay, so the catering. I know Matt really likes to talk about catering, but just to get back to,
I'm a catering
I know,
buff.
but just get back to So you
Okay.
did some gigs here in L.A.,
Yep.
but then this audition came up for a little film.
Yeah, I went in and I read with Stuart and
Stuart Gordon.
and then I got a call back,
Yeah.
and the callback, I'll never forget, was at that Methodist church right there on the corner, like an annex to that Methodist church right there on Highland and Franklin.
No.
Yes.
Are you serious?
Yes.
That's famous. That's
Yes.
what people come into Hollywood
Yeah,
and they go
sure,
to.
yeah.
Yeah.
So behind or beside that thing, to the west on Franklin, they have sort of a whole like annex building.
Yeah, there's little rooms so that you could rent or something.
Rented it. And
Yeah.
my callback was doing the basement scene with David Gale.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Wow. Nice.
Just so they paired me up with David Gale, and we did that scene.
Wow.
And then I got the gig. I found out I got the gig, and then.
But you didn't know. You didn't know.
But
that-
when they were making it, I mean, when you guys are actually making the film, was there any sense that, okay, this is going to get some attention or,
Listen, I had nothing to base anything off of.
right.
The really great thing was that Stuart was adamant about us rehearsing, so we rehearsed for a week or two.
Yeah,
so
he's from a theatrical background
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
He's into-
And for me, that was like good idea.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
Right.
So we would do that, and so we were much more prepared than your typical like let's shoot it.
Right.
'cause
Right.
We already kind of had it, I do remember one moment when the great Mac Hallberg, our cinematographer,
Yeah.
had his eye up to the camera. It was the basement scene, some basement scene. And I'm standing next to the camera. I'm just trying to suck in everything I can about filmmaking. How's the camera work? What are they doing with the lights? Look at all these cables. My God. And I'm standing next to Mac, and he's Swedish, and he pulls away his eye, and he says, I think this movie might be pretty good. And I went, really? You think so? Yes, I do.
Now,
Did you get
He
the,
was sage, wisdom. He knew.
Did you get the sense that you were shooting a straight horror movie, or did you kind of know that it was a blend of horror and
Yeah, did you get the
comedy?
humor as it was happening?
We created the humor, actually. I have to say, this is a bit of a bone of contention with Stuart a little bit. I think Stuart intended to make a serious, straight-ahead movie.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
However, Bruce Abbott, the
Yeah.
great unsung hero of RE-ANIMATOR,
Yeah.
and we had most of our scenes together, so we put our heads together and we said,
Right.
listen, the only way we or an audience is going to get through this bloody tirade is if we deflect and we find places where we can release this tension with humor wherever it fits, and we can put it in.
Interesting.
Nice.
I mean, for instance, the head with the paper needle.
Right, right.
What do they call those things? For receipts that you.
Oh,
stick
right. Yeah. What is that?
Yeah.
Like a poster or whatever. I don't know what the actual
you know
term
what I
for
mean.
it. Yes.
That was a prop, but it wasn't in the script that would be used.
Okay.
And so that was me going, okay, wait a minute. This head will not stay up by itself. It really won't.
Right.
They want me to like put the head in the pan,
Right.
take my hand away. Well, every time the head would slide.
Yeah.
It's just like it's not going to do what they want me to. Wait a minute. And then we talked earlier about Laurel and Hardy and, the magic threes.
Yes.
I did it once,
right.
I did it twice. Idea solved.
Great.
So Bruce and I were not trying to be cute. We weren't trying to be change the tone.
It's very real within the movie.
But we really were conscious about trying to find ways to get some dark humor.
Right.
Now, as you guys
Because
were,
we felt it instinctually as actors for our own survival and also for an audience stepping back and going, this relentless barrage has to
right.
be given some air every once in a while, some relief.
Yeah.
and as you guys were doing this, was Stuart now then
Kinda
seeing-
getting with the
kinda getting,
program.
like seeing where this could
I
go?
really don't know. Many years later, while we were shooting Castle Freak in Italy, and Barbara and I were at the table eating dinner.
Barbara Crampton.
Barbara Crampton, and we were talking about Re-Animator and its humor, and Stuart said, Re-Animator's not funny.
Had he seen it?
Well, you see, look. I may go out on a limb here because I know how you guys feel about it. And look, I have a special feeling towards this film too. But see, I didn't see it with a group of people.
Which is the way to see it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jeffrey,
I saw it at a midnight showing.
Okay,
That's
see,
the way to
Jeffrey,
see it.
I saw it by myself.
Yeah.
And I know Matt and I, we've had this discussion. You were like, Matt, isn't that funny? It's like when I saw it for the first time, I actually didn't find anything funny. I'm kind of I like my horror serious. We've
Right.
talked about
You're
it.
also a little humor impaired
No.
sometimes.
I like to laugh, but
Okay,
I didn't.
all right.
I wasn't laughing. I was like, oh my god, this is horrific. Oh my gosh, and understand for listeners, the Re-Animator from 1985. It's very graphic. It's very bloody. There's a lot of
outrageous.
Yes,
outrageous.
yes, it is. It's not like my sisters listen to the podcast, and this may not be a film for them because it doesn't necessarily have bunnies in it.
Head giving head.
It's my Christmas movie.
It
really is.
He likes to have Christmas
Let's unwrap
music on
that one,
Wednesday,
shall we? Yeah. So,
This was Stuart Gordon's first feature that he was directing,
Yeah,
right? And
yes.
and he actually relied a lot on.
well, there came points in the post of Re-Animator where they came to him and said, listen, we have to make decisions about music. Do we accentuate the humor with the music, or do we play it dead straight? We
Right.
suggest we go with a little bit of humor.
Okay.
So this was, this was a bit of a friction battle here of just how serious do we want to make this movie.
Because there's a fine line. Like, you have to play it
It
just
is.
right.
It's tricky because
Yeah.
you can't be too cute about it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the
right.
jig is up.
The wink,
right?
wink won't work.
Yeah, no. So the tone was captured by all departments extremely well.
Right.
Editing, music, everybody's performances, it all fit together so harmoniously as a unified entity that was distinct and always consistent. Right?
It's like that perfect stew of
It's a perfect
ingredients.
storm, happy accidents all over the place.
Yeah.
Right.
And after that, I thought, well, that's making movies, isn't it? And then And then reality sets in when you're on another set.
Yeah, you go to another movie.
Oh, we have no liftoff here. Let's work on this a little.
What if we?
Oh.
No. Okay. Bye.
But you know, the amazing thing about the movie, though, is you guys were really lucky in the sense that even though Stuart had been, this was his first time directing a film, you did have a very talented and capable cinematographer.
Absolutely.
You had a wonderful cast. You had terrific people who did makeup and effects.
Well, this was the heyday of like practical effects.
Practical
I mean,
effects.
Pre-CGI, thank God, because if CGI had been around, they would have just it wouldn't have held up. That's the amazing thing about Re-Animator is it's kind of like a time capsule. It's kind of like, whoa, I mean, there's nothing about it that says, oh, this is stuck in time.
Right.
I mean, other than no one's pulling out computers and cell phones.
And those gags would not have worked with CGI.
Not with CGI. They wouldn't have been. The
no.
whole joy of that movie is the cleverness of the tricks,
Yeah.
the trickery, the sleight of hand.
Right. You wouldn't be able to. It would be so thought out ahead of time.
Yes.
You doing that moment with the head, and the spike.
No, it's all the physical in-camera stuff that makes it so great.
That makes it the editing. That's clever. You know, it's just sort of like this second level of appreciation for the movie is because it's all practical.
Totally.
Now, for some,
We miss those days.
yes, but now for those of us,
it's kind of coming back a little bit.
well,
Yeah, a little bit.
for the listeners who aren't familiar with Re-Animator.
Which is
Our listeners?
Nobody.
No,
Really?
no. Well,
Fangoria.
well, hey, look, if we're going to mention like what ET is about, just in a nutshell.
I come up with a serum that brings the dead back to life.
Boom.
What could be
Done.
more inspired? Yes. It's not my fault that they don't come back quite right, but I'm working on that.
Yeah.
And they're
Now-
Normal
And I
Joe.
will not be denied.
Normal Joe makes good.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
It's American success story.
and there's like a
So-
really twisted doctor in there that's played by David Gale, who's
bless David Gale.
so great.
He's so great in it.
He has this great long face,
Oh,
and-
Chiseled.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
That's true. Like just the chemistry too. There's not just like you said, kind of like everything came together. The chemistry between you guys, the casting just all was like kismet. It just worked.
And then the beautiful, gorgeous Barbara Crampton.
Yeah.
I mean, she's
Yeah.
just stunning and just
And let's not forget, I mentioned Bruce, but also, Robert Sampson, who plays the dean and then turns into something no one wants to turn into. I mean, tonally, he is phenomenal.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's committed. Everybody jumped in the deep end of the pool in swan dives.
Yeah.
but
Didn't care.
But the shoot is not. I mean, could you say it was like a fun shoot? There were long hours or something.
Long.
There's like makeup. There's like a fight zombie
Yeah,
scene.
but
I
we
mean,
shot that movie in 18 days.
God, I can't believe 18
Incredible.
days.
Wow.
18 days.
With all the effects.
Not counting the opening sequence, which because we were behind, they cut.
No.
Where they go down the hall.
Yeah, the opening of the movie.
Yeah, the opening of the
Right.
movie, and Ed is of course he's dead. All of that.
Yeah.
That was cut. It was written, but it was cut because they ran out of time. Well, we don't need that. And then they cut it all together, and they went, let's do that. So we had an extra day.
Okay, so 19 days.
That's phenomenal, though.
Because when you watch this film, I mean, if you can pull yourself away from just the actual story, you think, okay, that's a big effect. That must have taken a long time. This must have taken a long time. And it's like there's so much stuff.
And this is Stuart Gordon's first movie,
movie.
and
I
to
can't-
pull all that off because that's. I mean, the minute you start adding special effects and stuff,
Right.
there's a lot to go wrong.
A lot can go
Yeah.
wrong. It just stretches out the day to hell. But he came from the theater, and he was a tactician, and he knew what he wanted, and he was clear about it, and he communicated with everybody, so everybody was pretty much ready and willing and prepared when the moment came. It wasn't wishy-washy. with
Right,
him.
right.
So
Right.
it wasn't
what he
like
wanted.
he had never directed before.
No.
God,
Sure,
I
right.
remember arguments between Mac and Stewart about screen direction, though.
Really.
Yeah, we'll put the camera over here for coverage, and Mac would go, Stuart, we can't do that. And Stuart would go, yeah, we can. Sure we can. And you go, no, you're crossing the line.
So Stuart was
Very
kind of
important.
directing.
Yeah.
Stuart was kind of directing as a stage thing,
Yes.
and then cinematographer was saying, no,
Yeah,
as
it's
a
a whole
movie.
And
different
listen,
world.
and listen,
Yeah.
crossing the line is still, for me, a dyslexic kind of like really difficult sort of thing sometimes.
Right.
I've never been on a set where there hasn't been one fucking argument about crossing
the line.
Until
Can't do
you
that.
see it done in the final edit, you don't know that it's
You
being done.
don't know that it's
Right,
being
right.
done. You think in your own head, oh, that'll work.
Right.
And then if you are stubborn, then you get into the editing bay and you cut to the person and their eye line is on the other side where it should be.
And then you see
Right,
why it won't
right.
work.
And that's
And then you see why
basically,
it won't work.
Yeah.
and that's in a nutshell, that is crossing the line for our, the listeners who don't really
Right.
know film terminology.
You notice that actors look on one side of the camera or the other, and if those rules are broken,
Right.
the believability of the moment being
Takes you out of it.
You just go,
Yeah.
whoa, he's not
Okay.
looking at him; he's looking at the other side of the room.
Right.
And so, bless Mac for being the veteran, saying to Stuart, your editor will hate you.
Was he the editor?
No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. But he was right.
It's amazing. I think Stuart Gordon, he really wanted to make something that stood out. He knew that I read something where he had seen a bunch of horror films up to that time, some slashers, and he really wanted to cross the line. He wanted to go above
Not
and
that
beyond.
line.
No, not that line.
Yeah.
But he wanted to, the graphic nature line.
Well, no,
Yes.
even his theater stuff is also legend.
Yeah.
About just
Oh,
shock,
yes.
shocking
Confrontation.
stuff.
Yes.
Just
Right.
very
Remember
sort of
talk-
break
yeah.
that fourth wall, blow their mind, shock them.
Right.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Very much into that anyway. So
You go from that film to From Beyond, which is
A
like,
much
now
bigger
you
budget.
notice the tone in From Beyond is far more serious.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
This is where Stuart, I think, I'm now going to make a serious movie.
Okay.
No one will
Right.
can futz with it and make it funny.
Right.
and yet,
And yet,
so this is 1986.
and yet, Ken Foray is running around in
Yeah.
Speedos.
red jacket.
Yeah.
So this is from 1986, From
Yeah.
Beyond.
Very different role for you
Yeah.
too. In a way, you and
Yeah.
Barb.
But yeah, you're with Barbara Crampton
are
again.
kind of switched in a way.
Yeah, I can't say that From Beyond is my favorite performance of mine or even a particularly enjoyable shoot for me. Although
it's a lot of goo.
listen,
first of all.
it was shot outside of Rome.
Oh, no.
So
Could be worse.
So
Hey, you get to travel?
I was like 8-10 weeks in Rome, so
Wow.
that
Hey.
was
Yeah.
pretty good. But I was covered in crap. It was Quasimodo, and you're right. They took all my kind of tools away, and that I was.
You're more the victim in that.
I was
movie.
the victim.
Yeah,
I
right.
wasn't driving the narrative. I was
Right.
reacting to the narrative. I was mostly like Bruce Abbott,
Right, in
Dan
Reanimator.
Cain
Yeah.
in Reanimator. No, you can't stop what's happening to me.
But
I will
was gonna-
argue,
yes,
that you are very compelling in that movie. Maybe looking at it from your point of view, it's different. We watch it, and I just see that pineal gland, and I'm like, I want to be that guy's friend.
Oh, so sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
So would you tell us, Matt, From Beyond, in a nutshell?
There's the machine, the
Resonator.
Resonator, right.
Yeah, that you, Dr. Crawford Tillinghast, and Dr. Edward Pretorius, played by Ted Sorrell, have been working on, and you finally reach this place where you have a breakthrough and you split the seam of reality.
Well,
Another
the
dimension.
resonator stimulates a particular gland in your brain, which allows you to see parallel universes and things floating about around you that you didn't even know you were. Very
and
much
Right, little
including
creatures
these strange little like monster eels that
Right,
fish,
right.
and that's weird. I mean, just for ideas,
Yeah.
that
Right.
movie
That's
is
a
so
good idea.
strange.
Well, it's so Lovecraft.
yeah, yeah,
It's
Yeah.
so Lovecraft.
Yeah.
So,
It also is just again a great example of practical
Effects.
a lot of them.
Even more, probably
Probably more than
elaborate.
you were happy with. I'm
And
assuming.
that was a real challenge because the Italians, did not have a tradition even then in the 80s of shooting with sound. I remember going
Right.
to a Italian movie theater to see an Italian movie, and their lips did not coincide with what they were saying.
It's all post sound.
Yeah.
It was all like, it doesn't matter, we'll do it. Everything was lip synced coming into Italy, so
Right.
why not their own movies? So,
Right.
Japanese do that too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the crew had absolutely no understanding of shh. shh, we're shooting.
So they're hammering or swooping,
hammering, talking. It'd be like action and. So, what did you see? It's like, wait, cut. Who's? And then they would be offended. You need to be quiet, and they would be like, what is this? They would look at you like, this is ridiculous. These Americans.
I cut you. I kill you.
This is ridiculous.
No, I didn't. How rude.
Wow.
Well, they just didn't know.
They have a different way.
Yeah, it's a different way.
Right.
All right. Yeah.
So
okay.
anyway.
But Jeff, after Re-Animator hit and kind of had this big splash, it did change a bit, right? It became from just another gig to now people are starting. How did that?
I gotta tell you, not really.
Really?
At the time, Re-Animator was a bastard child of the industry. It wasn't from a studio.
Right. It's an independent.
The critics were actually split on it. Mm-hmm. There were some that got it, and then there were some that didn't. And I would say that in the industry, it wasn't like doors opened for me.
Okay. Right.
We because that movie was unrated, we were the bad boys.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
It was almost a Sigma.
That had made a splash with something crude.
Mm-hmm. Something like basket case. Or
And
something.
it's just my own personal sort of experience was most casting directors then were women. This movie isn't exactly...
a date.
It's not a first date film.
Not the movie you want to show someone who believes in equality of the sexes and women's right treating. So
Depends on how you look at it, but okay. Okay.
So there was a little bit of you're in that.
I see.
Okay. Gotcha.
I feel, and none of the studios came looking for me.
They didn't take it
Right.
seriously. Yeah.
So it was kind of like I did this thing, I'm getting some notoriety for it, but it's really sort of a closed world. I'm not expanding out into Warner Brothers is calling or
Right.
or MGM or 20th Century. It just didn't. It just didn't happen that way.
Well, and then there's the kind of a stigma of being typecast as a horror actor because you were in a hit horror film.
And you've been doing like
and
Shakespeare. You've done all this other stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And none of that had really sort of sunk into me. I just didn't understand. And maybe I shouldn't have. It doesn't matter. But I didn't realize that this is a business that just loves to go, oh, you're that widget.
Yes.
When we
course.
need
Right.
that,
Right.
we'll call you.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, let's just sort of flip it on it. And let's say that the first thing that I was known for was a sitcom.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Then I would never be thought of anymore
Right.
for a serious drama or even horror.
Right.
Well, he's that sitcom guy.
Right.
Yeah.
So until another sitcom comes around, we don't think about him. And it's really, really difficult for an actor to sort of... it's like Don Quixote battling windmills. I mean,
Yeah.
they're just, you're that guy.
Right.
I would
right.
also.
You must like to do that, and that's all.
Right.
It's
Right.
kind of like, it's a frustrating battle.
Sure.
And I don't know if it's winnable.
The one thing you can say, though, is that I know that there are a lot of comedies over the years where you go, that person was in that comedy, and then that's it. You've never see them in anything else again. Whereas the one thing you could say about horror is that it hangs on culturally.
That's right.
I mean, people who are fans of science fiction and horror
Right.
are in it till the end.
I'm ever so grateful for it, and I've met so many incredible people through horror, not only on set, but at conventions, and the passion that people come to me with is just heartwarming to me. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about my aspirations.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
I was always taught in the theater that versatility was the key to a fulfilling career and something to be pursued.
Longevity kind of thing.
Longevity was more assured if you were versatile.
Right.
And that appears to me to be the absolute opposite in Hollywood. It is, we'll call you when we need that thing that you do.
Right.
Right.
And, all the major stars, some of them are really incredible. But if you want that, that's what you're going to get every fucking time.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
But
Now,
just-
I call them persona actors. They're
Yeah.
always that. They're
Yes.
never going to try to be anything else but the thing they do really, really well. And I'm not one of those guys.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Well-
like when I think about all the roles that you've had, that even within the genre,
Yeah.
they're
That's what
so
I've tried.
varied.
I've tried to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Within the genre, I say, okay, you're going to stick me. I'm going to try to do everything I can in picking them and in executing them to be different.
Yeah.
And sometimes people have gone, what? He's not doing the Herbert West thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Well,
it's
yeah,
like,
of course not.
That's right. I'm
Right.
not.
You're an
You
actor.
hired me, but I'm not going. I'm not your monkey.
Well, it's funny you should say that because, Jeffrey, the amazing thing about your career that I've seen, there's stuff that you did that I didn't even know it was you. I would argue that a lot of the stuff you did early on, like whether it's being with all the goo and From Beyond stuff, I think it may have prepped you for stuff that came down the road, makeup and stuff. You've done a lot of different programs or movies that had a lot of makeup and
All the Star Trek
yeah,
shows.
and Jeffrey, it doesn't even look like you.
Well, it doesn't feel.
it
you know,
doesn't
immerse into the
I
character.
just have to disagree with you a little bit. It wasn't really the Re-Animator or the horror things that prepared me for that. It was actually my actor training.
Yeah.
I had a movement teacher when I was at training, and this guy had us do a whole semester session in a mask work. And you go, what? Mask work? What do you mean? Well, he had a whole array of masks, different expressions, all white, but different expressions.
Right.
And it was so revealing to me. You would put these masks on and you would go, it would inform your entire body.
Yeah.
Oh. And then suddenly you would feel and embody the essence of that mask. You couldn't help it. You do that when you go to Halloween. You put a mask
Right,
on.
yeah,
and
sure,
you put
sure.
boots on instead of tennis shoes. You feel differently. So I just brought that to this really high level, high tech, glorious apex of ability of like Star Trek.
Right.
I mean, you can't do that stuff without all these people helping you out.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
All right.
the
Well,
wardrobe and the makeup. It's just
Like Deep Space Nine, for example, one of my favorite characters you've ever done is
He was done
is
what?
he's done a number of them, but a particular favorite of mine is Weyoun.
yes.
And Weyoun, I mean, talk about a character that's very different from things that I'd seen you do before, and so nuanced. It's that middle management guy
It is.
who
With a smile on his face.
a smile and a dagger.
Yes. Well, he's the guy who comes from the corporate office and says, "You have nothing to worry about.
We all believe in you.
We think you're doing a spectacular job. I'm just here. Let's go through the motions. Let me take you to lunch. I'll be here all week. It's perfunctory. This is just it's nothing you need to worry
And
about."
Weyoun is this race of alien called the Vorta.
The Vorta.
The Vorta, and they are the sort of the
The good face
of the Dominion.
of the Dominion.
Right.
The benign
Right.
and yet fiercely loyal.
Well, because everything involved with the Dominion links to religion. So these are like
Yeah.
their gods.
They
and
are
they're
gods.
created.
Yes.
And these are clones.
Well, the Vorta were a species that the Dominion genetically altered in order to be loyal, unquestioning, and ever faithful, and very efficient.
And they are.
And so it's really not my fault.
Right.
Right.
So I was free to be as pleasant as I possibly could be and kill you.
Yeah. And here is this character, but what was interesting about that character, here's this character that is genetically created to be this thing, and yet there was always a part of me that was like, I feel for you. I feel that you're in this place that like, hey man, this is just my job. I don't want to be a jerk, but this is what I got to do.
You can find joy anywhere, right?
Right. Well, and another beautiful thing about it too was also that when you'd watch the show, that character would then die, And then you go, oh, damn. And then he's back because he's a clone.
Right.
Oh, well, that was because the reason why there were clones was because the very first time I played Weyoun, at the end of the episode, I was killed. My particular personal joy was that I was killed by Clarence Williams III,
Nice. Right.
who was
The Mod Squad.
he was on the mod squad, but I'm trying to think of he was a Jem'Hadar.
Jem'Hadar soldier,
He
yes.
was a Jem'Hadar soldier, but Link killed me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
How
where
awesome
I'm,
is that?
See, that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
Right? So they killed me, and I went, okay, I did that role, and I'm dead, and okay, it's a oneer. Well, what little did I know is that the writers are looking at the dailies and going, fuck, why did we kill this guy?
That's great.
And it's too late for them to reshoot it.
Right.
They're on to the next episode by the time they're looking at daily. They're on.
Right.
Isn't that the
Right.
lovely thing, though, about science fiction?
And,
Yeah,
It is.
Really.
And
That's
it's
true.
lovely that one writer somewhere in that room raised his hand and said, we can clone him. And then it became a running joke.
But Jeffrey, it's also a testament to you as an actor because they must have really liked you at Star Trek at Paramount because not only do you do Deep Space
Yeah,
Nine,
you've carved a
you
nice
go on to
long niche
do
in, like, so
you
many
go on
characters.
Voyager and then you
Well,
do Enterprise
And
I
Deep Space
mean,
Nine playing yet Al Ferengi as well. Brunt.
Ferengi.
Right,
I mean,
I did that
my
first
God.
before
Oh,
I
did
did
you
that.
right?
Oh, you did
I
that
was
first?
doing
That's how-
Brunt before I did Weyoun.
And another character that I love, too. Again, very different.
Now, Enterprise totally...
That's like my favorite. I did not know it was you.
One of my favorite characters.
Actually, it was funny when Matt and I were talking about the possibility of getting you on, and he said, "Oh yeah," and he was on. He did Enterprise. I said, "No, he didn't." And he goes, "No, yeah, he did." And then I had watched the show. I didn't know it was Jeffrey Cobb. No,
Well,
no.
thank you. That's
another great-
It's the antenna, isn't it?
highest
It's-
compliment you can pay me.
Seriously.
That's truly it right there. That's why I want to do what I do, because you didn't know it was me.
Yeah.
No, I had no clue.
Great character.
No.
Shran is
Shran.
fantastic.
And I
Yeah.
was reticent to do that because I loved Deep Space Nine so much, and I was pissed that when Enterprise happened,
Yeah.
they didn't have me come in and for one of the series regulars,
Like
or
make you a part of the
like what am I,
crew.
chopped
Right.
liver,
Yeah.
man?
Exactly.
I didn't even get a chance,
But-
you know.
Right.
But,
and then I got the call, like, come in and. They want you to do this. I was like, oh, now.
Yeah. But for the listeners, I just want to explain this particular character is such a great character on Enterprise. And it's not my favorite Star Trek show, but this particular character that you played, which
one
is
of mine.
You play an Endorian
Captain,
right?
Commander.
Commander
And so,
Shran.
if you're not familiar with Star Trek, I know James knows all about this, but and the Endorians, they're all blue and they have these little antennas. Now, there was a classic Endorian in the classic Star Trek.
Yes.
But in this one,
Journey
it's-
to Babel.
Yes, yes. In this one, the Endorians, they have the same kind of
Ding,
look,
ding, ding, ding.
but your antennas
Dork.
are
Moving.
moving.
Yes.
And
I actually have people ask me, is that CGI or is that mechanical? And I always, no, that's acting.
Wow, you are good.
Yeah, I'm
you are
good.
good.
I'm not good. No, it is mechanical,
No, but
and
you're-
it's an amazing thing.
but
Process.
you
Very effective.
You do not like these humans when you encounter them. You
I
even-
don't trust them.
Yeah, you don't trust
Right,
them.
but
And
I
even-
don't trust anybody.
You even call,
Right.
you say they're like a derogatory. You say they're pink
skins.
pink
Pink
skins.
skins.
And the way you say it, it's like God. I hate this guy, and because it's like you don't want to go near him. You
Well,
don't trust him.
the
and it's-
reason
So you
why
like black
the
people.
reason why I'm mistrustful of them is because they're hanging out with the Vulcans.
that's right.
Right,
The
right.
Vulcans.
That's the problem.
Yeah. And
That's what I love about Enterprise. They turn on its head this whole idea
Yes, yes.
of that the Vulcans are above reproach.
Yeah.
Whereas the Andorians are going, listen, they're our neighbors. They've encroached on
Yeah.
us.
Right.
They hide behind this facade of logic, but they're just as ambitious and ruthless as anybody else.
Yes.
And don't be bought into their bullshit.
Yeah, that was
And
a good twist in that episode.
Your character's such a great character. You were brought back
Right.
several times, and it's such a great character. And again,
bless
my
you.
hat is off to you. I didn't know it was you.
Yeah,
No, and that's another character where it's like, I want to be that guy's friend. I want to hang out with him. He's cool.
I suppose
he seems rational.
I suppose I try whatever I play for it to be somebody that you are ambivalent about liking or hating is really interesting to me, because daily, this is sort of how we all navigate through life, isn't it? Like, this ambiguity of like, he seems like a nice guy, but can I trust him? I'm not sure. That was a dickish thing for him to say, but I'll forgive him that, because there's this other thing. And
how many times have, like, when you know somebody like a year, like for a year they're great,
they're great,
and then that year comes, you're like, oh,
and they're dickish.
Oh, you're that guy.
Yeah, I know what that's like.
And then and then you're in this netherworld of like, do I forgive and forget, or do I remember, or I'm a little wary
How
now.
close do I let you in my cam?
That's
right.
I told him, exactly.
Okay, now I have to ask. I know it's kind of a nerdy question, but it's like, okay, so you're hanging with these actors. You know, their makeup is like they're throwing this blue makeup. You got your little antenna, your hair. You know, how long did it take them to put this on you and to get in your outfit and then you got to shoot for like 12, 15 hours or something.
Yeah. There are some good and some bad things about that. The 3:30, 4 o'clock call in the morning.
Wow.
Just don't go to sleep.
Now, the good thing about
you didn't
that,
even bother to go home. It's like, I'll just be on the couch.
The good thing about that is that you do have the strange, dark magic and wonder of arriving on the Paramount lot when no one is there.
Really? Right.
You are
What's that like?
You're pulling up to the gate, and it's you and a bleary-eyed guard.
Oh, it's you.
There's no problem finding a parking spot. None whatsoever.
Oh, that's great.
And then you're walking across that lot in the dark with the shadows of ages.
Yes.
Right.
A lot of history.
History
It's
there,
you
yeah.
and the ghosts.
Yeah.
Right.
And you just show up with a makeup guy, and he begins. And it's
Right.
He's got a pot of coffee.
it's really hideous when that cold shit hits your face, and you
imagine.
do not want it again. But here it comes.
Right.
My particular challenge is my eyes aren't good. So once I sit in that chair, and once the makeup is starting to be applied to my face, I can really no longer look at my material.
Really?
Oh, okay.
That is really my biggest anxiety, is that I
Go over the script
cannot
and- yeah.
use this time
Right.
to my advantage, because I can't put my glasses up. I can't wear my glasses.
Oh, I didn't even
and
think about that.
You can't look at the script.
So it makes me be prepared before I come.
It forces
Right.
you.
Even
right.
forces me even more so to really front load. And even then, you're done at 6:45.
Okay.
Maybe you get a little breakfast, and 7 o'clock it's rehearsal, blocking.
Okay.
And you're in makeup, and everybody's just showing up.
Hi.
They're going,
actors-
hey, Jeffrey, how you doing there? Hey.
I'm an alien.
And the other actors that just have to put on a Starfleet suit, they're like,
Right.
what's
Little
my
powder.
line? What's my line? And,
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a real test of just kind of getting your head right and prepared.
sure,
And then you're right. The hours are long, really, really long, because when they've got you in there, they want to get everything that they can with you, and it's always longer than you think it is. But the good thing is there's a thing called overtime. And there's another thing called a forced call.
Oh, do tell.
Okay, no, I
don't know this one.
call.
Let's say you're called at 4 o'clock, and they don't wrap you until 9 o'clock
At
at
night?
night.
Oh,
And
that's
they
a
say,
long day.
by rules, we're supposed to give you 12 hours.
Okay.
But we can have you come in here early if you agree to it, force your call, and you get a bump. And it's a pretty bump. It's a nice bump.
Wow.
So you go, sure, got no problem with that. So there are benefits
Okay, yeah.
to these long and grueling hours in makeup, if they have the budget.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Well,
I have an even nerdier question.
Okay.
Even nerdier?
Even nerdier. You've been
I'm so sorry.
involved in these different Star Trek spin-offs in playing various characters.
Yep.
And were you a fan of the franchise before you got involved in it?
Absolutely.
Nice.
Really?
There you go.
You were.
Unlike him.
When I was when I was a kid, 1966, September 8th, Star Trek debuted, and it was an early birthday present because my birthday was the next day. And I just dug this show, and I watched it as often as I could. My dad was not a fan.
Okay.
I think it was up against his fights.
I see.
There was Matt can
And we only
relate,
had one TV,
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
and it was boxing or this stupid
Space show. Yeah.
space show
Right.
that he didn't want
Right,
to watch.
yeah.
So my attendance was spotty,
Okay. All right.
Right.
Makes sense.
but I loved the energy, the verve, the leaning into the material that those actors brought. I mean, it
totally.
could be cheesy, that show, but they brought
Hey, that's
all kinds of desire to the material.
Totally.
And somehow it works.
And somehow that is just outrageous, and yet you go, I'm with you.
Wow. Yeah. Do more of it.
Sure. Spock, I don't understand.
There are things that he would do with his body that were just
Every
amazing.
episode.
Yeah,
You know.
he'd go like something would hit like a alien sound frequency would hit him, and he'd go,
okay.
Or he'd roll a certain way.
No, listen, look, you guys, you guys are knocking it. I think that was just
no, but
great.
it's-
And then
we love
I will
it,
I'm
say
not
this.
knocking
no,
it.
no,
I'm
but
not knocking
and
it.
what's cool, Jeffrey, is you were actually there at the beginning. You saw it at the beginning. Many of us, we didn't catch it until it went
when
into
it
the
was in
rerun.
syndication, yeah.
Yeah. So it's really, really cool that you were interested when it first came out.
Because it wasn't never a huge hit at the time.
No.
Well, it kind of was, and it was like they canceled it. What the hell? These
with
guys
fans,
don't know
yes.
what they're doing. I mean, I wasn't an avid fan, like writing letters or anything.
Sure.
I was just a regular teenage kid, but
Yeah.
it was like this is another example of them up there in the ivory towers not being in touch with what
Right.
people are really enjoying.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
You cancel that, you idiots.
Yeah.
And that was the writing campaign, so they got a third season, I think,
Right.
mostly out of yeah.
So I was there, but I was I was just eating it up because it was so sort of there was nothing like it, and I knew at the time that it was a allegory for the Cold War.
Yeah.
That's what's forgotten.
Yeah.
Is that the Federation was basically the
Right.
United Nations, and the Klingons were Russians, and the Romulans were the Chinese, and we knew this
Yeah.
without even being told.
Yeah.
Right.
Bloodthirsty Klingons.
Right.
Romulans kind of cold and aloof
Yeah.
but cunning. And, the Federation open and brave and honest and sincere and swashbuckling.
Yeah.
Right, that's true.
I mean, I understand it. It's like you're somewhat a mild fan, but it must be kind of cool that as an actor you've gone on to be in a lot
even
of
part
Yeah,
of the
you have no
universe
idea.
now.
Yeah.
That must have been kind of a reality check of like,
Yeah,
oh
yeah.
my
You have no idea.
God.
You have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is a childhood sort of like, really? I get to do this?
And especially Enterprise, where you're going back to almost
Before
that time.
retro,
that took
yeah.
place. Yeah, that's kinda cool.
One of the biggest thrills of Enterprise was the first episode when Shran finds a communicator on the ground. And I got to pick it up and go and say, Enterprise.
Wow.
Now, no one, the crew and everything, they don't frickin' care, But I'm geeking out.
That's pretty awesome.
I'm a boy again going.
Sure.
I used to do this in my room. After
Yeah.
the episode, I would go in there and like reenact everything, and here I am. This is
awesome.
unbelievable.
And
I
guess-
would have done anything.
Yeah.
To just I would have been happy to be like the guy that there's always that crewman who's
red-
in every
the
episode
red shirt who gets
has
killed.
like no, not even that has is
We've
killed.
reached warp speed.
Right, right, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Aye, sir. I'll see you next episode.
See, I wouldn't mind being one of the security guys in the background that gets turned into a cube or something, after like you're
Right,
there for only a
right.
minute. But another cool thing, Jeffrey, about your experience is I know it's tough if you're not a regular, but what's so cool is you've been able to participate and you played a host of different characters.
Right.
I know.
And the funny thing is, when I said I didn't recognize you on Enterprise, it's like you had this experience, and yet you can go on and do other things where you're not typecast as, oh, that's Chekhov or that's Sulu, or you know what I mean?
There is one episode in Deep Space Nine where I have credit for 2 roles.
Oh,
Nice.
in the same episode?
episode.
What do you guys know that?
Dogs of War, I think, is the name of it. It was like the third to the last episode of Deep Space Nine. They put me in as Brunt and Weyoun.
That's awesome.
No, you played 2 characters.
Yeah.
And it's the only time that happened, right?
Yeah, I would get out of my makeup and I'd go down onto back to the sound stage, particularly a long day or something, and I'd go up to crew members that I work with all day and go, hey man, thanks a lot. And they go, and who are you?
Nice.
And I go, no, I'm the guy
You're
with
the
okay.
You're okay. You're all right.
Or they go, which one were you?
That's awesome.
Well, that's an homage to the makeup and wardrobe department, not so much me.
I mean,
They hide you pretty good.
No, yeah, but you
production,
did a good
obviously,
job.
those productions were like well-oiled machines.
They
I mean,
that's a production line of high end, and
Right.
They spared nothing wasteful, but nothing.
nothing cheap, nothing, no cut
didn't,
corners.
They didn't cut corners.
Right.
They cared.
Right,
And,
right.
Both those
really
shows, Deep Space Nine and Enterprise, are ones that I go back to those more than, and I love The Next Generation, and I think it's a groundbreaking show in the sense of it kind of showed
It
you
brought
that
it back,
you can
yeah.
do science fiction in a big grand way and make it
Right.
adult.
Right.
Right.
But I mean, what I really always go back to is Deep Space Nine and Enterprise, because
Well,
they had a level of. There was just a lot of very different, unusual ideas that I had never seen in a science fiction show
Very
before.
creative,
Very
very creative, very sort of groundbreaking in
Yeah.
a lot of ways.
Remember, there was Voyager in there with some good stuff there too. Hey, easy.
played a character
I
Yeah,
liked
too,
I liked him in it.
Yeah, well, okay, all right.
Jeff, I wanted to ask you about one movie that, from what I've heard, you really enjoyed and had a good experience with, and that was The Frighteners.
Oh,
That was this was 1996.
Whatever happened to that
Peter
director?
Jackson. But this was a very
Never heard of him. Never heard
ambitious
from him
movie.
again. Unbelievable.
But very ambitious movie. In some ways, like if you're going to any kind of comparison, like Re-Animator, it was the balance of horror and humor.
Yeah.
too. But there was a lot of working parts in that movie, and you were such a standout in that.
Yes,
movie.
you were.
are, yeah.
Again, I didn't know that was you, by the way, and I think it partially because the
Should check the
haircut.
credits, really.
Okay, clown. Okay, look, I'm just, when you're in the movie, you're in the
Yes, you're
moment.
drawn
Okay,
in
come on,
and- yeah.
come on,
I
and
agree.
he wasn't like a star. It's not like Michael J. Fox, which I think. You know how much I love Michael J. Fox, and
He's
Back
not
to the
my- he's
Future,
certainly not my favorite
but not
part of
in
the
that,
movie, no.
not in that movie.
No.
For
I
me,
think he's really good in that movie.
He's
well,
good.
I,
He's good, but he's not my favorite part.
But tell me about the movie, because you had your character Milton Dammers.
That's a great name.
Character,
Milton Dammers, FBI special agent Milton Dammers. Should have retired 10 years ago. But he's
Right.
still on the
going.
job.
Yeah.
Damaged goods.
Yeah, really.
For loving of country.
Dammers.
Kind of a weird dream come true. I mean, the story is that my agents, when that movie Breakdown came out, they tried to get me in and they said, no, he's not right. He's too young. No. And they kept looking and they couldn't find what Peter was looking for. So they finally went to third string, I guess, and begrudgingly said, okay. I came to it really late in the process.
Huh.
I know that because Michael J. Fox was at the audition.
no.
Wow.
Now, actors, I don't know if people out there know, but
The star wouldn't do that.
the stars don't particularly
Go to an audition.
Go to auditions until maybe it's down to the last of the last of the last.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget this. I'm sitting there waiting to go in. And first of all, I have to say, one of the saving graces was that I got the material early. If there are any casting directors out there, I want you to know that you do actors a disservice when you call their agent the night before and say they want you there at 10 o'clock and here are the 8 pages.
Really?
Right.
Yes.
You're screwed.
Yeah.
Right.
Because there's no prep time.
Right.
They don't respect it. They don't think about it, and it's to their detriment because actors need to get this stuff under the.
Right.
They can't wing it.
Right.
Some
Right,
can,
right.
but some can't, and more time is better. And I had it for a week, and it was dense material. You know, that whole exposition and
Right.
stuff.
Right.
So that was good. I had prep time. But I'm sitting there waiting to go in, and somebody comes in, and they're backlit, and I can't see, and they sit down next to me, and it's Joe Mantegna.
Really?
And I go, wow, I really like your work, man. And he goes, oh, thank you. And I go, what are you here for? I'm this Dammers role. And I'm going, why am I here? What's this? I shouldn't. I'm never
Right.
going to get this part, especially when Michael J. Fox comes out and goes, Joey.
Great.
The joys of auditioning. Just take a sledgehammer to the pane of glass that is my facade of ego and shatter it. I'm fucked. But I went in and I actually made wrong choices, but Peter, gave me some adjustments, some direction, and fortunately, because I was familiar with the material, I could and just well, the longer you have the material, the more facile you can be with it. I think.
Right.
You can throw it away or hit it on the head, whatever. But anyway, it wasn't that easy, but there were other people that had to green light it, but I eventually got that part. I have to say that's the most collaborative and unselfish experience I've had with the director. Peter was very open. And what do you think? And he had some definite ideas, but I mean, he also was like all ears. What do you think? His instinct, his bravery in seeing a kernel of a good idea and going for it, as opposed to I'm going to stick with what I think, is really to be commended. That's one of the reasons why he's a great director. Is he's prepared, but he's also really flexible.
Yeah.
That's
To
awesome.
be able to step away from your ego
and just go, that's a better idea
Yeah.
than the one I had.
right.
Or that's we can blend those two ideas.
Right,
together.
yeah.
So I just have to say it was really one of the most enjoyable and really kind of weird.
Yeah.
I mean, what the hell am I doing there? I have no idea.
What was
Yeah,
it like
good-
with Michael J. Fox, though? I mean, he was considered a big star after the whole Back to the Future thing.
What you see is what you get with
Yeah.
Michael.
Yeah.
It's down to earth,
Yeah.
honest, sincere, good, wry sense of humor, good guy to hang out with. You can have a beer with him, or I don't know. He liked to watch hockey. That's it.
He's Canadian.
Which is he's a Canadian. He's I gotta go. I'll see you later.
Also, you had a good D. Wallace, John Aston.
John Aston,
I mean,
D. Wallace, Jake Busey.
yeah, good versatile cast.
Ari Ermey is in it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an amazing. But that movie was really ahead of its time. They didn't know how to categorize it. Universal
Yeah.
didn't
I
know how
know.
to promote it.
It didn't do well when it came out.
It had a
right.
cool poster, and I remember seeing it. I thought the poster was cool, but then I saw Michael J. Fox's name on it, and instantly, for me, I'm like, that's odd.
Well, yeah, it was a different. You're right, though. It was very ahead of its time.
What would you? How would you describe
Well,
the
it
film?
was kind of
the film.
horror comedy. I mean, yeah. I think
Well, it
it's a horror-
starts one place.
Right.
This was the Universal's dilemma. What do we promote? The first part of the movie, which is sort of a live action Casper with Michael J. Fox.
Yes.
Or do we focus on the corkscrew down into dark hell
Right.
that is the second half of that movie?
Right, and which is where your character resides, kind of too, mostly.
Yeah, so the publicity department was sort of betwixt and between here. which one do we
Right.
focus on here? Because we can't, I guess, do both. So I think they split their audience because they went for the date crowd. Like, well, let's go
Right.
have fun with a Michael J. And then about halfway through, they're like, oh my God, this is nothing. And the hardcore horror fans
Right.
who would love the second half are sort of turned off because
Right.
it seems light.
Yes.
Right. You're
Yes.
right.
Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah, it is
That's how I
like
felt.
Totally.
Exactly.
Aha.
So,
Take
but
that.
from an artistic point of view, that's exactly what Peter Jackson intended to do.
Right.
He wanted a movie that started one place and took you down the rabbit hole.
Right. That's good.
Perhaps
And
I will have to see it again.
And I think
yeah.
that he succeeded in that.
And it also, I mean, that does sort of reflect the films that he had done in the past too. If you
Oh.
see like Dead Alive,
Dead Alive.
Yeah, totally.
The Feebles. Meet
yeah,
the
Meet the
Feebles.
Feebles. is-
Yeah.
It's insane.
One of the most
Yeah.
insane, bizarre movies you'll
Ever
see.
made.
It's hard
Yeah.
to say. Is it the same guy who does Lord of the Rings? That when you,
Yeah,
you
well,
see
hey.
those first two films.
Talk about versatile.
Versatility.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You mentioned John Astin, and it's interesting because I, a long time ago, went to see a one-man show.
Did you see that?
Of him as Poe?
Yes.
And it was lovely. And we got to meet him after the show.
Wow.
Just a lovely guy.
Yeah, he's
really
a great guy.
Really great.
Lovely guy.
And so, this was the Poe one-man show that I saw. And
Right.
then Steve Allen Theater, there's Jeffrey Combs in Nevermore. So I go and I see this we come with my wife and my brother-in-law, who's visiting from Japan. And first of all, this performance, aside from your ability to inhabit the character of Edgar Allan Poe, this show features one of the best slow drunks I've ever seen. No. It was incredible. Like where you start in the very beginning of that show and where you end, nothing is drastic. It's all very subtle as it goes all the way through, and yet you still get, sections from The Raven, and it's everything is there. But adding that element of this is what this guy was like.
Yeah.
It's a theatrical device, and it is a reality of Poe's tragic life
Yeah.
that he couldn't handle his liquor, got him into a lot of trouble. And so it was a way of sort of conveying this ambiguity of, once again, it's complicated. And I sort of approached it like I had an uncle. He's dead now, bless him. World War II veteran, and he was an alcoholic. And I would go and stay with my cousin, and his dad never drank during the week. Ever. But the weekends, he became a different guy.
Okay.
Wow.
And he became a much more effusive and entertaining guy.
Right.
And so I thought, well, this is what something that alcoholics manifest. They drink because it turns them into a fuller perception of themselves.
Right. That's
They-
my excuse.
Yes. and so I Poe never drank on stage. The show is like a recital, as if he's in front of people and he's reciting his readings and poetry and everything. He never did do this, but as a theatrical license, we thought that this would be, in the short period of time that we have, to show sort of kind of colors of him and his self-destructive nature, that it might be an interesting layover on this, to like an overlay, to have him drink and actually get more and more entertaining. Because when I first pull out the bottle, if you recall, the audience loves it.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
they? The party has begun.
Yeah.
Wow! We're
Yeah.
gonna go, baby. And by the end, they're, please don't fucking take another drink. Please
Yeah.
don't.
Wow.
Right.
Because drunks wear out their welcome.
Yes.
And they crash and burn.
Yeah.
They don't know. They don't have any breaks.
Right.
Right.
And that's sort of what we wanted to.
I love the tipping point in that show too, where,
Uh-huh.
where it's fun, it's fun, it's fun. Wow, it's like, oh, now
This
it's getting
is-
a little pathetic.
This is bad.
Yeah.
This is embarrassing.
Yeah.
I feel embarrassed for
Yeah.
this guy. Yikes. This has got to be really humiliating, humbling. And so it's just it's a wonderful structure to that show. And
I loved it.
Dennis Paoli wrote an incredible script. And
He was one of the Re-Animator writers.
he was.
Yeah.
He was.
And also Castle Freak too, right?
Castle Freak, From Beyond, I think Pit and the Pendulum, anything that
Yeah, yeah.
Stewart did, Dennis, Stewart has known Dennis since they were college roommates. I mean, they've known each other forever.
And how did that land in your lap?
What?
The one-man show. Was that
Edgar
something that
Allen
you
Poe.
approached Stewart with, or
That's a tricky one. I have to credit Stewart for that. These things are so tied on little tiny turns. I was looking desperately for I love history, and I was looking for some historical character that maybe I could portray. I wasn't thinking about a one-man show. I was more thinking about like a script or a movie or something like that. And I actually, in a resistant way, picked up a biography of Poe. Because I thought it was too close to horror. And I'm telling you, the one thing that I wanted to sort of try to find is a historical character that is not of the genre.
right, right,
Right.
I was really trying to expand my repertoire,
right?
not reinforce it. But I started reading this biography, and not only was he physically about my size, my eye color, those sort of things, I began to sort of relate to this guy and appreciate the struggles that he had, the
tragedies.
strikes against him from
Yeah.
the get-go, and yet how he blossomed into one of America's great writers. No matter how what did I used to say? He's America's Van Gogh, a tortured soul,
Yeah,
but a transcendent artist.
yeah, genius.
Genius. And unappreciated in his own time. He died a pauper.
Right.
And, the real problem with someone who is truly gifted is the added layer of tragedy to that is if they know it.
Right.
And he knew it. He knew that he was good. Let's say this. He knew that he was far better than a lot of the people that had far more monetary success than himself in his own time. I mean, there were people you've never heard of that had huge careers.
Right.
And here is Poe, the only person that we do know in our read, who is being ignored in his own time. Incredibly tormenting, that kind of unfairness in your life, and it can fill you with indignation, rage, all kinds of not good things.
No.
And so I was just captivated by his story, his journey, and I said to Stu, why hasn't anybody ever made a movie about Poe's life? This would be absolutely incredible story. It's unbelievable, really, in many ways. Lost his mother when he was 3. He was adopted. He went to West Point, for God's sakes, got kicked out. Just the struggles of the man. And his wife was so sick for many, many years, and she's going to be better. She's not. She is. She's not. He lost her young. It's just heartbreaking.
One of those tragedies could have broken
One
Right.
of them.
Right.
normal man. Yeah.
Right. And Stewart kind of went away with that. And about 6 months later, I get an email from Stewart, and he says, attached is a script that Dennis and I have written of the Black Cat, and we want you to play Poe for an episode of Masters of Horror.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's a great script.
It is great.
And so we went up there to Vancouver and shot it, and it was a phenomenal experience. And while we were on set, Stu kept saying, Jeff, you ought to do a one-man show. And I was like, yeah, no, that's not happening. No. He was like Yoda He was just gentle. he was gentle but insistent, like a Zen master. And after about a year and a half, and I guess, things weren't really cooking for me, restless, and I called him up and I said, what would that look like if we did do that? And so we sat down and we mapped out poems that we would like, what story would I read, what would we start with, what would we end with, and it just kind of gelled into this evening of a trajectory that made perfect sense to us. And a 4-week run,
Sold out.
4-week run turned into 6 months.
How do you like that? How do you like that? Yeah.
How cool is that? You got to see it. Dude. That's
it's so
amazing.
great. I mean, it truly is. Now, take away the genre element.
Yeah.
It is really a fascinating study of the man.
Right.
Because I think actually adding the element of the drinking through it throws in that level of tragedy that, like, as much as I love John Astin, there was an element of, I feel like he's too together.
Right.
And as the show goes on, you're trying to just keep it together as any way you can.
Any way I can. Just the levels of, like, drunkenness, from the grandiosity to the downward slide, to self-pity, to moroseness, to anger. I mean, it's just it afforded me to play all kinds of different colors.
It was great,
awesome.
and it was also a very personal moment for me, too, because when I brought my brother-in-law, there was a little story that I might have told you before, but I don't know. But so my brother-in-law, Patrick, he is going to go to the bathroom right before the show, and he's looking for the bathroom. He doesn't see the right door of where the bathroom is.
He comes
and
to the
dressing backstage, and you're there, and you're, of course, fully in character,
Yes,
right?
I'm in my regalia.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, but and then he walks in and he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, I thought this was the bathroom." And you go, "Well, can't you read?" You're like perfect, you were perfectly in character.
I kind of pulled a Poe on it.
Yeah. And then he comes back and he goes, "Yeah, he kind of yelled at me," and I was like, "I said, don't worry, hey, look, he didn't yell at you, Poe yelled at you."
And just so you know, I have no memory of that whatsoever.
Of course not. Of course
But
not.
it happened more often than you would.
Because it's a tiny little theater, and it's funny because there's 2 doors. There's one that if you go to the right, that's the stage. Left is the bathroom.
Yeah, right's backstage, left toilet.
yeah.
That's great. That's great.
But that always made me laugh.
So to wrap up this Poe thing, I haven't done it in a couple of years, and for a while I would still run it in my head to just sort of
Keep it fresh.
Do you
never know.
still have all those lines or something in your head, kind of a thing?
sometimes.
Really?
Sometimes. I mean,
Go. No, don't give him that
I'm
pressure.
kidding.
Come on.
I'm kidding.
Come on.
It was many, many years ago. No, but at some point it was kind of like I just let it sort of drift away. But I do have the script, and I do look at it every once in a while, and I'll be able to run through like swaths of it, and then go, what the hell comes next? But it's there. I think it's there.
Right.
A actor friend of mine said he was taught by John Houseman, at Juilliard. And John Houseman said, always have a one-man show in your back pocket. So,
There you go.
Remember that.
I sort of have one that I could. Anyway, I'm talking with this theater producer of possibly bringing it to a small theater in London.
Wow.
Ooh, wow.
Perfect.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Theater town, and
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah.
But
And you're in London, so there's that too.
yeah, cha-ching.
Hey, Monster Party road trip, huh? Hey.
It's a very expensive city, and
Sure.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, that's
a
true.
lot of theater. So you could be swallowed in the miasma of everything else that's going on. But maybe
Well, Jeffrey,
That'd be
I hope
awesome.
you do that because unlike Matt,
We'll go.
I was not able to see this, and I would love to see you in it.
Totally.
I do hope you're able to come back and do Poe again.
Maybe it can be filmed. Maybe this can be a movie.
Yeah, you ever
We
thought about
tried that,
Yeah.
guys. We tried that. We tried to Kickstarter campaign. It just crashed and burned.
wow, really?
What we learned is that if it were a Lovecraft-based project, it probably would have
Really?
exploded. But Poe is more literary than
Right.
he is.
Right.
Lovecraft has sort of a pop culture aspect to it,
Yeah.
right?
A little
T-shirts
bit.
and Cthulhu and all that.
Necronomicon.
Poe is more literary, and so not as many people are as willing to support it.
It's funny though, but of the two men that you want to get to know better, definitely Poe.
Definitely, Mr. Poe.
Although you did also play Lovecraft in Necronomicon.
Yeah, that was sort of surreal and bizarre. I mean, it's one of those things where, really, you want me, 5'8",
Right.
What was the date on that, Sean?
button nose. Really?
Yeah, it was 1993.
Not a
93, yeah.
particularly accurate casting.
But you wore prosthetics, right?
The makeup was pretty good, though.
I had a
Yeah.
chin and I had a nose, and all, and above and beyond that, it was also the script wasn't anything close to who Lovecraft
No, right.
No,
Basically, it was
not at all.
it was
Indiana
yeah.
Jones.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. It was like a swashbuckling.
So I
yeah.
was sort of conflicted, like I've got a gig, but I'm not really being particularly accurate to who this guy really is.
It was kind of a
That might have been for the best for the movie.
but it was kind of a clever device, which was basically an anthology film.
It was-
with
and
3
I
different
was the
stories.
wraparound.
Yeah, but it was like he had to get to the Necronomicon, which these monks were hiding,
Yes.
and the monks were monsters, and it's kind of crazy, but it's kind of fun though. It's a fun movie.
I do enjoy it.
Yeah, and the effects are pretty fun.
You know, it's really cool though. I mean, you've done a lot of stuff. I mean, you've done movies, you've done television. You were like a scientist and aliens, and you did literary stuff, Edgar Allan Poe. But you also done a lot of voiceover stuff too.
That's come a little later.
Yeah, but still, you've done it. I mean, and you've done quite a bit. In fact, I mean,
The definitive Vic Sage. The question.
The question.
Yeah.
from
It's all a conspiracy.
From Justice League
Justice
Unlimited.
League Unlimited, which I have to say came out of nowhere.
really.
Yeah.
I don't know. You don't. Maybe you do. You know. Somebody has my same agent here, right?
Yes, that's right. And God
awesome.
love you, Imperium 7.
That's right.
Arnie's going to get a big bouquet of flowers.
Money. So I did not have, for many, many years in my career, a voiceover agent. In fact, I didn't even know that was a separate thing. I mean, I was working enough that I had film and television, and I was good.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of, every once in a while, and I have to say this is because of Andrea Romano.
Oh, yeah.
Who is a preeminent voiceover director.
Yes, she is.
okay.
From
Many
from the beginning of the Batman animated series.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And in fact, that Batman animated series was my very first gig in voiceover.
No.
Scarecrow.
Scarecrow.
Oh, right.
They
did not
they
know
called me out of the blue and said, "Would you be interested in doing this?"
Uh-huh.
And it was like, what? Okay. And it's a completely other world in there. I mean, people, you have to realize this is a completely different skill set. You know, because you do this too.
Yeah.
It is not in front of a camera. It is everything. The entire personification is in your voice, and that's the only tool you have
Right.
to convey what this character is. You have to distill it down into that. And then there's the techniques of like not popping your peas and
Right.
all of these sort of technical things that you have to also keep in mind. It's like juggling, and it's a complete different skill set. And I admire guys that can do this because it is not an easy gig.
Can I ask you, when you did it, especially
Yep.
the first time?
Yeah.
Because some of the voiceover stuff that I've done more recently, they do it almost like it's a radio play where they will go through the script almost chronologically.
That's what we did.
Yeah, and you have everybody in the room.
That's what
which,
we had. Yeah,
which
that's what we
really
did.
helps.
It really does help because acting is reacting.
Right.
So if someone says a line, the way they say it is how I respond to it.
Right.
And whereas if you're going in there cold and you just run through your lines
just by yourself.
it's just not the same.
No.
But I mean, I was in there with like Ephraim Zimbalist Jr.
Jeez.
He's so good.
and like Ken Berry from like F Troop, Charles
Wow.
Rocket.
Yeah,
was in
yeah.
there.
Oh my God. Wow.
Charles. So my point is that I was getting every once in a while these little voiceover gigs unsolicited, just like yeah, sure, but mostly because of Andrea. Okay, and here's a little connection. Andrea Romano was roommate to Anthony Barneo, who was the casting director for Re-Animator.
No.
Way back when. So that's sort of how I first oh yeah, hi, how are you? I don't know who she is. But Justice League was like Andrea again. Many years later, Warner Brothers, and they just called and said, would you do this thing? I had no idea that you had to have a voice, or I didn't bother to know that you had to have a voiceover agent.
But you also did you did Scooby Doo Mysteries. You did Transformers.
Yeah,
Thundercats.
that was all after I got a voiceover agent.
Right.
But yeah, Transformers was the big sort of like get. It was like, what?
That was a Ratchet.
Ratchet.
Hey, can you do the voice, Ratchet?
Optimus. I needed that. Bulkhead. Yeah, I mean, I just fell into that. I just was lucky. I really didn't know much about Transformers. I knew about Transformers,
Sure.
but I wasn't a geekoid about
Sure.
it. And so it was like I got this gig, and it was like, okay.
That's kind of an awesome day of work.
Oh,
You know? Because
I can't even begin to tell you what that room was like. That room was filled with some of the most insane voiceover talent that I think I will ever see. I mean, you had Peter, you had Frank Welker there, you had Stephen Bloom.
Do you work with Tom Kenny?
No.
Okay, just curious.
Kevin Michael Richardson.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was deep and wide. It was just staying.
Yeah.
It's trying to stay up, man, with the big runners here.
And you're there, you're in,
You're in.
out. It's like the polar opposite
4
of the
hours.
makeup day.
Bye. It was all of those 4 a.m. calls were balanced out with like, okay, you're
Okay,
done.
thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
Here's your money.
Yeah,
Here's your basket of money.
And you don't have to get out of makeup or costume. Apparently.
Right. That's amazing.
But that
Get back in your Snuggie and
But that also led to some video game voices that you did.
Yeah,
I mean,
I've done some.
yeah.
That's a weird thing. Video games is I didn't realize really how much work a video game is because as you know, if you've done them,
I've done a couple.
It's like all the efforts.
Yeah, there's all those auditions that you do. where you gotta go.
different hits that you have to, a big hit or a it's just like permutations upon permutations.
Incoming.
Right. Yeah.
So that's a skill set.
That's a whole other skill set.
Yeah, but you
that
got
you
it,
have
man.
to appreciate.
You got
Yes,
it though.
appreciate it.
You got that. I mean, you've done so much, and you've done so many films that we haven't talked about.
Well, Jeff, I wanted to hit upon how I want to know what it was like for you to revisit Herbert West in the sequels because that they had different.
Two.
Yeah, well, there was Bride of Re-Animator. And,
Yeah, but there were really wide periods of time in between them.
Right.
And it was really kind of strange to get back into it after I hadn't done it. If they're in close proximity to each other, it's one thing. But
right, because Bride was about 4 years after the original Re-Animator.
Right.
And Brian Yuzna was directing this time, right, for Bride.
Right.
Brian Yuzna.
Right. Brian Yuzna was directing it. I think at the time, Stewart's agent advised him, if you want a career in film, don't do sequels.
Gotcha.
It was sort of the
the
unsung rule of if you're building a directorial career,
Right.
it's death if you just repeat yourself.
Okay.
Right.
But for this film, they brought back, Bruce Abbott.
Bruce
Gale
Abbott,
and
David
David Gale.
Gale.
Right.
They wanted to use Barbara, but it was for such a short little stint that, at the beginning of the movie that didn't work out.
Right.
So
Was it as smooth of a production, or was there?
No.
Okay, that's what I've heard. Yeah.
I think it had a bigger, better budget, but it was sort of hamstrung by the fact that there actually, when the deal was struck to make Bride of Re-Animator, there was actually a different script.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Oh.
And at some point, someone stepped forward and said, that's my idea. I contributed to that. So you need to, if you're going to incorporate that, you need to monetarily reward me for that. And so there was a hasty, either we change the script or the deal completely goes away.
Okay.
So I feel that Bride is sort of a hodgepodge.
A little bit, although it has the Frankenstein element in it. Which,
I love the whole Bride
building the
building
Yeah,
of
right,
the
yeah.
bride, and I love the idea that the heart
Yeah.
of the bride
Megan's heart.
is
Megan's
Megan's
heart,
heart.
yeah.
It's
That's
the
awesome.
big hook that
Yeah.
pulls him in
Yeah.
again.
Right.
He can't help himself because maybe she can come back. So that's really all delicious stuff. But I think there are other plot sort of bizarre kind of not in tone kind of things
Right.
going on in that movie. So it's not quite cohesive.
It's still enjoyable though. I mean,
and I thought it was tried a little too hard to be funny. Sometimes.
it wasn't the same exact balance. Right.
It wasn't the
quite-
same balance. We hadn't find the same tone.
Right.
So
But then way later, like 2003, then you had
Beyond
Re-Animator.
Re-Animator.
And that one, I have to admit, I like more than Bride because
Right.
that one's wacko.
the
last half hour of that movie is
and
insane.
I also think that it captures a lot of the same sort of tone
Yes.
of the first movie, especially in that no matter what obstacles you put in front of Herbert, he will continue to work.
Yes.
Yes.
He's in jail.
But
He's
also
in jail.
and
yet
still
the experiments continue.
But I like that.
what better place,
But
really?
in the beginning of that movie, you're kind of like a little mellowed and kind of like reserved till your fate. But then, like with the doctor coming in, you get right back into
Right
the classic
back
Herbert
in.
West.
I see my opportunity.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, and there's some twisted, crazy things in that movie that involve, let's say, dismembered penises and rats and guys who are cut in half. I mean, it's crazy.
It's insane.
Yeah,
Movies are always it's the things you don't know. Like that movie had to be shot in Barcelona. In order for that movie to get made, it had to be shot in Barcelona.
right.
Because it was a Barcelona company that Brian had a deal with, and the money was coming from Barcelona and from the Spanish government and subsidiary. It was a Spanish production, and I think I know that it's sort of hamstrung us. You know, it's supposed to take place in a Massachusetts prison.
I got that.
But it's amazing how many Spanians there are.
It's strange. It's like a little Spanish town.
And including the warden.
Yes.
I am from Massachusetts.
What sort of experiments are you proposing? You know, it's like,
That literally was the
wow.
Yeah.
Now, if we were doing Zorro, this would be good, but we're not. So we got it made, and I think it has some really spectacular things about it. But it's sort of the constraints of the deal.
Right.
Right.
Sort of undermined our ability to I mean, listen, those actors were wonderful, but sometimes it's kind of like, we could have been more convincing in our ability to sort of make it feel like the illusion was that we're in America.
Yeah.
Right. It
I
is
do
really
agree.
entertaining, though.
I do agree with you.
Yeah.
I do think it's a lot of fun.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now,
Now-
there is a poster for something called House of Re-Animator where Herbert West is in front of the White House.
What is this? Is this something that was realized?
Proposed or
No. It was an idea that came about during the Bush administration.
Oh, okay.
And
The good old days.
Yeah. Seems kind of benign now, doesn't it?
No.
It just seems so innocent.
Just a guy having fun.
Now we've got a narcissistic asshat going on. It's a different level of whack here.
Oh, yeah.
Where's the reagent when you need it?
So Stewart, is a 60s radical in some ways, and he really, really wanted to stick it to the Bush-Cheney administration. And so he came up with this actually sort of brilliant script where the president or the vice president dies of a heart attack.
Okay.
I think it was
Right.
it was the vice president.
Okay.
And, because
his heart.
Cheney
yeah.
had it.
Right, yeah.
Right,
Okay.
So, but he can't be dead because he really runs the country.
Right.
And so they search high and low and they find Herbert in hiding.
That's a great idea.
And
This
they-
is genius.
Genius. And they bring him to the White House to do his best,
Right.
to bring him back, and it's fine for a while.
like it always is. Right.
And then it's humiliating chaos of a political,
man.
like everybody literally gets their comeuppance.
Right. Yeah.
That's
Well,
hilarious.
It's actually
Wow.
a great. That's
Wow.
actually
It
a
is
great
great.
concept.
Okay,
I
yeah,
mean,
That explains the human-sized safe.
Not only there's also a basement with a lot of corpses that have been stored down there.
I
Like
see. Yes.
right.
Yeah.
Kennedy and
Right.
it's
Oh my gosh, that's
it's not
awesome.
pretty. But the problem is that when they went out to get money, producers would go, but you want to alienate half the audience
Right.
to make a political point.
Right.
And we're not putting money into half an audience.
Yeah.
Potential. You're going to alienate half, and you're going to elate the other half. So
I think the time is now.
that's kind of an interesting concept, though. You could.
Yeah.
It couldn't get backing, and I
Right.
kept saying to Stewart, but Stewart, we could do a whole Dr. Strangelove thing. It doesn't have to be.
Oh my God. Yes.
It doesn't have to be these people.
Exactly.
Right.
It
Right.
can be an imaginary
Right.
Right.
examination of power.
Exactly.
And-
Right.
Come on.
Yeah.
And he
Right,
would
right.
have none of it.
Oh,
It
wow.
had to
Really?
be.
It had to
wanted
be
to do it.
those
Okay.
son of a
Literally.
bitches need to be.
Okay.
And
Wow.
so it didn't
That's a shame.
Didn't
Wow,
go
that's a good
anywhere.
one.
That's a
Yeah.
good one.
That
is a good one.
Yeah.
It's not too late.
Yeah. You know,
Almost seems a little more apropos now.
yeah, really. With all the directors you've worked with that you like, Peter Jackson, Stuart Gordon, of course, Brian Usna.
William Malone.
Have there been any
William
other
Malone.
Have there been any other ones that you particularly enjoyed working with in their films?
Yeah, there are a number. I did an obscure little movie that I don't know if anybody has ever seen. It's not in the genre at all. Called Love at a 45. You all shake your head and
No.
go,
Sorry.
I read the book.
He does a lot of reading.
Love at a 45 was sort of a two Texas lovers on the run, running from the law.
Okay.
A little more complicated. A sassy movie, very Tarantino-esque.
Mm-hmm.
Before there was Tarantino.
What year?
Oh.
I don't know what year. 1991.
Okay,
maybe,
okay.
something like that. And it was written and directed by a guy named Carty Talkington, and it was a really good movie. It has a great soundtrack. It's Renee Zellweger's second movie ever.
Is that right? Really?
It's the movie that got her Jerry Maguire.
Really? Is that right?
That catapulted her into stardom. Gil Bellows is in it. Peter Fonda.
Wow, yeah.
A lot of really great people. Rory Cochrane is in it. It's a great, wonderful movie.
Listeners, let's watch this movie.
Yeah, check
You
it out.
should watch this sassy-ass movie. And the soundtrack goes from Johnny Cash to the Butthole Surfers, man.
Nice.
It goes everywhere.
Wow.
Jeffrey, what the name of it again is?
Love and a 45.
Nice time.
I think the first line in the movie is, my granddaddy always told me there's only two things you need to get through in this life: love and a 45. Isn't that great? It's writing like that, you know?
Yeah, that's great.
And I got to play this fucking speed demon Texas whack.
Oh, nice, nice.
I'm there. Let's do it.
And
Let's watch it now.
what was it like, the atmosphere of working with all the Empire Full Moon people? Because that seemed like a very close knit community. I mean, you were
Charles Band.
Jumping
Because I know that
around,
was a kind of
uh,
a tumultuous,
yeah.
strange, yet there's a lot of great stuff that came out of that time,
Full
especially
moon.
what we love.
Yeah, I mean, I remember going over there, and it was like Charlie had this wall from floor to ceiling with posters on.
Charles Band, right?
like lobby posters of, like, you know, all of these movies that he had done and all of the movies that he planned to do. I think he said like 200 movies by the year 2000. Or
I don't
something
doubt
like
it.
that.
I don't doubt it at all.
That's
He
yeah.
was booking them out of there,
Yes.
you know? And, you know, I kind of got tapped for doing some of those, you know?
Now, he had the license to do Doctor Strange for Marvel, right?
Yeah.
But it expired?
But then it expired, but he had a script, and he went, hey, I'll just change the name, and we'll...
Why not?
Why not?
That became Dr. Mordrid.
Dr. Mordred.
Master of the unknown.
Master, yes, I am the master of... I don't know.
Hey, Dr. Mordred, what do you think about life after death?
I don't know. I'm the master of I don't know. So
That is a fun movie.
It
though.
is fun.
It's really
It's one of
fun.
the
great.
best
Yeah.
movies
you
that come
know
out
what
for
I
me.
like about it is all of the, you know, stop motion.
Dave Allen.
A lot of that.
Dave Allen,
Yeah,
yes.
but,
Yeah.
Dave
Allen.
Dave Allen,
Dave
yes.
Allen and all that Ray Harryhausen
Stuff.
sort of.
Love that stuff,
It was one of
yeah.
the last times that was ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Puppet Master films and all those used stop motion. Yeah, that was that time when you still saw that stuff. That was cool.
But those
Yeah.
dinosaurs, you know,
the
the bones
museum.
of the dinosaurs in the museum that
Yeah.
come alive again, it's very effective. It works.
It's so
and-
strange for me to go down to the LA Natural History Museum because it's the same room that, like, in the, you know, the Spider-Man. Remember when he gets
Oh.
bit by the spider?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
yeah.
right.
It's the same
That-
room.
that
Right.
lab.
It's the
Yeah.
same room.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just like I go in there and go, oh, wow, I remember working in here. Who does that anymore?
But I remember watching that movie and thinking, not only would this be a great series of movies, but it would be a great television show. And it
Yes,
was almost
that's
like
true.
like before the wave of, you know, the Marvel franchises.
Yes, it was
That's true.
still quaint, and it was
Yeah.
it was accessible in a way. It wasn't like over the top in its grandeur and special effects. It was kind of
Yeah.
kind of
Smaller, more
right there, right in the
Yeah,
palm of your
yeah.
hand,
Yeah.
and sort of like almost like a harken back to, like, you know, matinees or
Yeah,
something.
like the serials or something.
Serials,
yeah.
yeah.
Brian Thompson was the good bad guy. in
Brian
that,
Thompson was my evil
yeah.
brother.
Yeah,
yes.
that was good.
Yeah, he's great.
He
You
is
know,
lovely.
Good chemistry all around in that film.
Yeah, yeah.
Yvette Nipar was
Yes.
she was wonderful, and
Jay Acavone. I think
Jay
his name-
Acavone, who I saw recently. He lives around here, actually. It's not too far.
Let's call,
Call him up.
Come on over.
We're having a great time. Come on over.
Come on over, Jerry.
Jay!
What up? So,
Yeah.
anyway.
And one thing you were talking about how with Re-Animator, how the humor and the horror. One Stuart Gordon film that really is pretty straight dark horror is
Castle Freak.
Freak.
Oh,
That is
man.
when we actually had
one of my favorite.
We had Stuart on and he talked about. I think it was like he was going through a time
Turmoil
in
in his life.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
something like that.
Some
Right.
things
Turmoil.
were happening in his life.
Turmoil in his life.
And that was reflected in the movie, which is a very serious, dark a relationship. You know,
Yeah,
falling apart.
it was a challenging movie to make. You know, I had to sort of tap into my own, like, personal, like, just torture. There are elements of that movie and the dynamics that are going on that I really like. I mean, for anybody who hasn't seen that movie, it's really kind of an examination of yin and yang in a way. I have a brother. I have a half brother that I don't know I have. We have different mothers that we're sisters and we have the same father.
Right.
Right.
So in a way, we are 3/4 brothers
Right.
because we're half brothers because of our, but we have the. So in a way, it's sort of a device to sort of say, this is really the same person, but he could have gone this way or it could have gone that way.
Right.
So it's really kind of a dark image of myself. So it's really this two sides of the same person.
Right.
It's a struggle between the dark and the light in
And
a
both
way.
going through their own personal tragedies
Yeah,
big
Yes.
time.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I think that he borrowed the best. You know, I'm not a big fan of Kubrick's The Shining.
Really?
Okay.
Okay.
And one of the, I mean, I am visually,
Right.
I think there are some stirring and startling components to that movie. But if you read the book, I was really pissed off because
very different.
because the book is about a man who's on the wagon. He's done some awful things and he's trying to be a better person. And he gets into this hotel and the hotel just slants on him and makes him fall
Yeah.
Right.
from grace, whatever grace he has left. And when you come to the movie, Jack Nicholson is fucking nuts from the get-go.
Yeah, right.
No, you know he's going to kill everyone
is true. The
from
second
the
you
very
see him,
first
that
scene.
is true.
He's
It's
not
like-
fighting any inner
Right,
demons.
right.
Like,
Right.
thank God this hotel happened so I can kill my family.
Right.
Don't worry, Doc. I think everything's gonna be okay. You know, so it's like, whoa! You took
Right.
away all the really juicy playable things. We just lifted that. I mean, so Castle Freak starts with a guy who has done some awful things because of his drinking. Tragedy has
Right.
has been visited upon this family because of his drinking. And he's still there, and his wife is still there, and he's trying really, really hard.
Yeah. He was drinking and he got into a car accident.
Killed his son and
killed
blinded
son
his
and-
daughter.
Yeah.
Right.
And she's still with him. His wife is still with him.
Right.
Which is pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
But they're trying.
Right. They're so.
Yeah.
So, but talk about dramatic tension. That's really powerful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kind of. That's just conflict.
And you
and-
feel for everybody
And yeah,
in that
you
story.
you in that movie and Barbara Crampton just so good. Just some really just hard.
some nice
yeah, she's
drama.
lovely in there, and it's hard. It was really a hard movie to shoot psychologically. Some of those sequences that are up on the roof was really kind of dangerous. Some of that shit. There were no like.
Nets.
You
or-
could go. You
Right.
could go off that roof if you weren't careful.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially with rain and slick tiles. And
Right.
So it was taxing. And
Good film though.
it
Powerful.
is. It is very powerful. And of course, the only way that he can destroy the monster is to sacrifice himself so his family can live. And
Right.
I just think that really cathartic sort of themes
Yeah.
going
and,
on there.
And if I could point out your half brother, that's already a tragic story within this
It is.
story. But
Right,
then
right.
you've got this boy who, to get back at the husband that left, the mother decides
Took it out on the child.
Took it out on the child.
From the get-go.
From the get-go.
So this
Right.
child has been nothing but beat upon from its infancy until he can finally free himself.
Most people think that he's dead.
Right.
And they suspect that the mother killed him, but nobody knows for sure. Well, what you find out in the movie is that she's kept this guy in a cell,
deep in a castle, chained to a wall,
beats him every day, brings his food and beats him.
and that's how hell hath no fury like a woman scorned.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because her sister ran off with the father to America and left her there impregnated. So she's taking it out on this
right.
innocence.
This poor kid.
Yeah.
And he's now become a monster.
He's a monster. He's warped, and I'm blanking on the name of the guy who played the Castle Freak.
Jonathan Fuller, who Stuart knew from Chicago, doing theater in Chicago.
And he does so much to bring empathy and humanity to that character.
Right.
Even though he does these horrible things, there's these moments where you go, all you've ever known is people hurting you.
Right.
So
And
you can kind of understand.
So that's all he knows.
Yeah.
And good God, you don't blame him. He's
He's had a rough go of it.
he's as much
Yeah.
of a victim as anybody else.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's a great movie. That's really very different from the other Lovecraft-based
Yeah.
Stuart
Very,
Gordon films.
very, very dark and harsh and unforgiving, but kind of operatic in a way. At
Yeah.
the end.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just sort of like, oh my, high drama. I mean, it's just.
That's a good one.
And Italy, too. So.
And Charlie's castle. And every 5 years, Charlie would shoot a movie in his castle. Be able to write everything on.
All right, sweet.
Classic. Because Jeffrey, you have done so much. I mean, you've done. I mean,
you
no,
do some
it's-
more?
No, it's
That's
like
what my
just-
wife
it's
says.
something- Hey. I want to thank you so much for coming and being with
Yeah,
us.
thanks for making this.
You guys,
such a
listen,
fantastic.
this is. I don't usually do a lot of these because I just I don't know. It's always the same sort of unoriginal kind of pathway, but this has been really joyous and fun.
It's fun. We're laughing. We're having drinks.
The beer is good.
There you
The
go.
company is good. The questions are good.
It's been a party.
It's
Hey,
been
We
a
like to have fun
joy.
with this.
It's a monster.
yeah.
monster party. God bless you, sir.
No, it's
Yeah.
fantastic.
No, I'm
Really.
just so thrilled that you could be with us tonight. I know you.
And you'll
probably
come
got-
back next
well,
week, right?
Yeah, I'll be back. Part 2.
Is there anything that you're working on? Anything that's coming up that I can look forward to, or you got anything? Any more voiceover stuff? Or, I
Anything
mean,
that you want to plug at all?
Well, not really. I mean, I have to be honest with you. I've just been kind of perplexed that in the last couple of years, it's really not been all that busy for me in the industry, and it's frustrating. I think frustrating. I mean, I could be honest with you and say, well, dishonest with you and say, oh, everything's great, things I can't talk about. But I spend a lot of time trying to understand the ins and outs of this industry and what's valued and what's not. And there's a lot of content being made.
Right.
But I'm here to tell you, I wouldn't know it. I'm not getting in there to try out. I'm not being thought of. So I'm sort of at this crossroads of like, what exactly is this anymore? I don't really understand. Is it ageism that's going on? You get to be a certain age, and it's like, there's that old story of the 5 stages of an actor's career. You
Yeah.
know?
Which is?
They're like, who's Jeff Combs?
Uh-huh.
And then get me Jeff Combs.
Okay.
And then get me someone like Jeff Combs.
Yeah, there's that one, yeah.
And then get me a young Jeff Combs. And then the final stage is who's Jeff Combs?
Well, that's not the case here.
No.
sir.
Yeah, that's the thing. But see,
But
the
I'm
thing.
sort of, you kind of listen. I've been through hills and valleys. This business is
all
yeah.
of us,
It is
yeah.
a brutal journey
It really
of,
is.
of,
Yeah.
of switchbacks and on the mesa and then down in the valley with no water and then, oh my God, look at this waterfall. Where'd that come from? And then it's a adventure.
Yeah.
Well, and
But
also,
it's a pretty barren for me right now. I mean, I will say I did a voiceover for a Lovecraft animated movie
That's interesting.
recently. I think it's mostly for kids, though, which I think is a good idea.
Wow.
That's interesting.
It's called Howard Lovecraft and the Undersea Kingdom. And, it's got, like, they announced it the other day. It's got, like, Mark Hamill.
Oh, my God. Wow.
Christopher Plummer.
Nice.
Ron Perlman.
Wow.
Jane Curtin.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
And me. And so it's like, well, that's good company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But but I still got some juice in my tank. But
Oh,
I
yeah.
just,
Hell
I
yeah.
just got nowhere to put it.
Well, you know,
I'm
may-
sort of. I've never been good with like not working. I don't know who I am if I don't have something. So
Right.
the longer
Right.
the stretch of time, it's like the more doubt I have. And
We're all
Yeah,
annoyed.
yeah, same
We're
boat.
all
Yeah,
annoyed
totally.
by that same fucking
Yes.
thing.
But I know it's
man.
just a matter of time. Like you said, hills and valleys. But,
Yeah.
And I also want to thank you. You do these shows every once in a while, whether it's like at that Monster Palooza or something, and I was just so thrilled to actually meet
Yeah.
you there for
Yeah.
the first
Yeah,
time.
it's great.
And
I
thank you.
understand.
And
Yeah.
I encourage you to continue to do that because there are a lot of people out there who are big fans.
We fucking
Mhm.
we
listen, if I
fucking love you.
didn't go to some of those conventions, I would lose heart sooner than I do because I know that there's enthusiasm out there and appreciation, and I can't tell you how much that bolsters me and keeps me going, because if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have a touchstone to know that that's out there at all,
There's
because
4 touchstones right here.
Yeah. You have no idea how delighted we are
Yes.
that
Oh,
you
really,
are
truly,
here,
truly.
and how you have touched our lives in so many ways.
Yeah,
and I
and
hope that
just-
didn't come off creepy.
yeah, well, whether it did or not, here we are.
Here we are. Hey, we'll make it work.
Kiss
We'll
me,
make-
you fool.
Oh. Get off my lap.
Jeffrey, thank you again so
My-
much
my
for being with
pleasure.
us.
Thank you.
Cheers to you, buddy.
Monster
Cheers. Monster Party.
Hey, let's do a quick listener shout out.
Shout out!
This goes out to Chris Burdick.
Chris Burdick.
All right, Chris.
Did I say that right? Chris Burdick?
Chris Burdick, Grand Poobah of the Loyal Order of Water Buffaloes Bedrock Chapter. He's a producer.
Wow, is that real?
Well, he said that's his description on Facebook anyway. He's a producer and writer at the Liquid Mercury Theater. He studied cinematography at USC. He's originally from Greenfield, Massachusetts, which is where my mom lives.
Cool.
He went to
Don't bring your mother into this.
He went to Greenfield High, which is where both my sisters went. So maybe they know him.
Who knows?
Chris, we appreciate your listening. We're glad you like the show. Thank you for your support.
Thanks,
you,
Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Jeffrey Combs is thanking you.
That's right,
Yes.
Chris.
And let's remind our listeners, you can find us on Facebook and YouTube at Monster Party TV. On Twitter, we are at Monster Party HQ. Also, Instagram, Monster Party HQ. And we are now also on Google Play Music for those of you with Androids.
Android.
If you check out our eBay store, which is Monster Party Store, you can buy an official Monster Party cap.
Great
Oh, they're
cap.
good. They're good.
I want one.
Oh, you're getting one.
You just get one.
Filled with sushi.
Is it Monster Party or Monster Party?
Now we got to make new hats.
This is a high quality hat.
It is. Look at
not
it.
a cheap.
Oh my
This
God,
is not
it's
a
beautiful.
cheap hat.
That says class.
There's no cap like this cap.
Well, look, it's a high quality cap.
Is
You
it
know how
not?
many
It's like-
stitches?
Yeah.
No one's arguing with you,
Yes, no.
except
No,
you.
it's not millions. It's like 17,000 individual
Okay.
little
All
stitches.
right.
That's
Let's
beautiful.
move
All right,
on.
we got it. We got it. We got
So,
it.
because I'm on this, does that make me a monster?
I would.
An honorary monster.
And a
Yes.
monster, honorary
Yes.
monster.
Partier,
Monster
yeah.
Partier.
Yes.
Yeah.
monstrously charming.
Oh, or I create monsters.
That's true.
Therefore, there is a party.
Yeah.
Creating monsters in all the right places.
So
It's alive.
so where can we get this cap, James?
Yeah.
On our eBay
One more time.
on our eBay store, which is Monster Party Store, easy to remember. And hey, if you're listening to us on iTunes, please take a moment and write a review. We would love to hear from you.
I want a monster cap. I want a monster cap.
It's in the card.
Your wish may come true.
Jeffrey Combs approved. On that note, I am Matt Weinhold.
I am Shawn Sheridan.
I'm Larry Stroth.
And I'm James Gonis.
And I am somebody.
I know you from somewhere.
Don't I know you? You're a. No, that's not it.
No, it's not that guy. Yeah.
I'm Jeffrey Combs.
He is.
All right.
Keep America strong.
Oh, God.
Spend an evening with Jeffrey Combs. You'll be glad you did.
It'll be huge. Believe me. Not.
Headphones or headphones aren't.
Is that one of those ones that has a little knob on it?
It should be fine.
Wait, no, I'm good.
He's
You're good?
good.
Okay.
Yeah, I really can't hear myself until I get really down in there.
Yeah.
It is. You do kind of with these
hear
mics. You
you.
gotta.
You have to hug the mic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
All right, I'll be in here then.
if you wouldn't mind. But I can pot you up. I can.
Yeah, just a little bit. That's good. There we go.
There we go.
Testing, testing.
All right.
We're good?
You all sound lovely.
I think I sound
Test,
great.
test.
This is great. Okay.
I sound
I like
amazing.
Oh, you guys.
And I'll be.
I sound great. No, I sound
Yeah,
great.
but you
I
see-
do sound pretty wonderful.
You see now you're finding out a bit of personality. How someone here is really stuck on themselves, or really,
I'm sorry. I need my dresser to come give me a little.
I need a drink.
All right. Well, you have come to the right place.